13.
O'clock.
Well, hey, everybody. It's Wednesday night, and we're doing a paranormal show. Everyone seems very excited about that.
Yeah.
I feel like, well, it's been a while since we've done, like, a whole paranormal show, hasn't it? I don't remember.
I love these. We're going to talk about Poltergeist.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I've seen.
Yeah.
Jenny wrote a book, wrote several books on it, on the subject. And Jenny's seen it too. It's not as bad, it's not as strong as it was, but every now and then it fucking comes back. We're going to talk about Donnie Decker.
Yeah, among other things.
Yeah. Is he out, I don't know if he's out of prison yet.
I don't know. I couldn't really find any updates on what had happened. I thought he had gotten out of prison, but I don't know what happened to him since then.
Try to find his ass. Yeah. That's the only guy, that's the only other, that's one of the few living dudes that I believe when it comes to Poltergeist. He just said a lot of the right shit, and there was just too many damn witnesses. That first time he was in prison, the fucking warden and all the fucking guards, they called in the priest, man. Fucking water was fucking flying at the damn priest and ripping down his cell walls. And he could make it rain in restaurants. He could make it rain inside the house. And I was like, some people would be like, man, how's that possible? It's fucking not. Poltergeist is a poltergeist phenomenon. RSPK, recurrent spontaneous psychokinesis, is a fascinating fucking. I don't want to say it's an ability because you can't really do it at command. It's a fucking side effect of consciousness somehow. Some kind of quantum consciousness. He was condensing fucking water molecules out of the air. Making water molecules. He's making water. And then there was like a kinetic energy fucking factor to it also, because it would sometimes fall up or sideways, some of the drops, things that hit you. He fucking, yeah. And he kind of had the background of a poltergeist fucking focus.
Yeah. I mean, we'll get into that. It's interesting, too, like how you saying, like, some of the water went up and stuff like that, because that other book, and I'm not talking about this case because we already did a whole show about it a long time ago, but the book that I wrote with Steve Mara, the Rochdale Poltergeist, that case he investigated in Manchester, England.
Yeah.
They had it rain inside their house also, and they noticed that as well, that sometimes the rain would go up.
Yeah.
Which is pretty weird.
With Decker, it was a lot of rain, though. You could do it in front of a bunch of people. The cops.
Well, the Rochdale one was, too.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
That was like a lot of... So much that they needed an umbrella sometimes.
But there were a lot of police witnesses that saw it and said they'd never seen anything like it. Dude, the cop fucking went back home. He was just shaking. He'd never seen anything like that. Said it just changed his world. The other case that I know of off the top of my head that I was like, yeah, that's the real thing, is the Enfield Poltergeist case. Guy Lyon Playfair wrote a book about it called fucking This House Was Haunted. Although he comes out and says it wasn't a ghost, it was a poltergeist. This little girl was making it. Subconscious. Recurrent spontaneous psychokinesis. Under the control of the subconscious mind. Now, not all the phenomena in that case, attributed to that case, is true. Some of the people, I think, lied about what they saw. But the stuff that people agreed on that happened, had multiple witnesses, it sounds exactly like the kind of shit me, Lois, and Red went through at Mammoth Mountain when I was a kid. It's a lot like the Enfield case. But there wasn't any voices coming out of me or anything. I don't remember hearing any voice at all in Mammoth. Now, later at Lois's house, there was a voice that tried to manifest itself just out of thin air. But I couldn't understand what it said. I ran from it. It sounded like it was something underwater, kind of talking backwards. It's weird, man. It's weird. The last major thing it did was a few years back. It pulled the top of the molding of the fucking kitchen cabinet off and threw all the horse statues that were up on top there all in one fell swoop. Boom! Yeah. It was just when I turned my back, it did it. Pow! And
that was at our other house our old house in Sanford.
Yeah. Threw like 3 of them. The statues were about this big. They were wooden. Some of them broke.
Yeah.
And it pulled like a 6 foot piece of molding off. And the nails, there are little nails that they use for molding. It looks like almost like a glorified tack or something, or a staple.
They call those brads.
Brad, I think it was called. Yeah, those things were fucking twisted and still stuck in there, fucking still sticking in that piece of molding. And I just looked at it. I knew what it was, but I tried to blow it off. Yeah. Weird.
All it does now is turn the Xbox on in the middle of the night.
Yeah, that's the main thing it does here. Turn the Xbox on.
And it doesn't turn the TV on, because if you want to like watch it or play a game, you have to turn the Xbox on, and then you have to turn the TV on. Yeah. It doesn't turn the TV on though; it only turns the Xbox on, and you always know because like 3 o'clock in the morning it'll go brrr, like it made that little noise like it comes on, and I'm just like, what the fuck?
It did it as I was falling asleep. Jenny was next to me.
Yeah.
A few days ago, I was worried about a bill I had to pay, and it did it.
Yeah.
But it used to turn on the television and the cable.
Used to turn at the old house. It turned on the TV like all the time.
Yeah,
at least several times a week.
Yeah, in the living room.
Yeah,
but then occasionally it would turn on the television in our bedroom. We'd wake up and the fucking TV was on.
Yeah, usually it was the living room, but a few times it was the bedroom one.
Yeah,
because it would light up, like, you know what I mean. I'd be like, what the fuck?
Ring the doorbell at night. Open the garage door at night.
Yeah, I think that was the freakiest thing.
Yeah,
it like ringing the doorbell.
Yeah,
because that. Well, I was freaked out by that because I thought it was a person, and I'm like, who the fuck is ringing the doorbell at fucking 4 a.m? That's never good. But there was nobody there, so it was like it was pretty fucking freaky.
But if you want to hear my whole case, Jenny wrote a book about it based upon it. Me, Lois, and Red gave our stories. My cousin Wesley gave his story, but his story changed a little bit. He's deaf and autistic, and I had to leave some of it out because his mom didn't want me talking about him too much in there. So
yeah, we had to kind of tread carefully.
Yeah, had to tread real carefully on the West subject. Sometimes there's some people who've read the book who said, "Well, hey, couldn't West have done this and that?" No, I haven't been able to tell you everything yet. They're all, Lois is still living. Red's dead, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, Wes is still living too.
Red's still alive, but he doesn't read that shit.
Yeah,
his reading comprehension isn't very good.
Yeah.
So maybe once she's gone, maybe I'll go into a little bit more detail. But Red remembered more of it than I did. I remember.
Well, he was older than you.
Yeah, he was older.
Time. He was your uncle,
Yeah, and there were some major ones that I'd forgotten about. Like I forgot that it threw a knife. I forgot that it rearranged the Matchbox cars, put them out on the floor, fucking in a pattern. I forgot about that part. It did a bunch of stuff that I'd forgotten about. But it didn't do it at Mammoth. It did it at Lois's house when we got
later.
Home.
When you got home.
Later when we got home, it followed us.
Yeah.
Because it was just a phenomenon that was manifesting from me. I couldn't control it.
Yeah, because probably most of you guys know because you've been here a long time. But yeah, it happened to Tom when he was 12 or 13, right?
Yeah.
And it was not even at your house, at least at first. It was at like just some vacation lodge that you'd never been to before. Mm-hmm. Like you went there and all this crazy shit started happening.
I knew something bad was going to happen there. And when we were driving there up through the mountains, I said, man, this kind of reminded me of the beginning of The Shining. So I was starting to have a feeling of dread. And the hood flew up on the car. Fucking red. We were on the side of a damn mountain, on the side of a cliff. He hit the brakes and got out there and it had opened, but he didn't, and it flew open and everything. And he had no idea how it could have because it was a latch with a safety mechanism, and it never did it again. But he drove, and it was snowing.
You're doing that shit, Tom.
Yeah, it was weird. And it was weird. When it happened, it felt like I'd been fucking, like I jumped out of my fucking, felt like I jumped out of my skin when it happened. It was weird.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, and then as soon as we got there, I threw my bags on the fucking bed and went back to the car to get my other bag. When I came back, the bed that I have, I saw something moving on the bed, and it was opened and shit had been scattered out. And I saw a sock come to a halt, rolled up pair of socks. And I looked at it and said, it must have fell over. But I had a weird feeling. It didn't fall over. It was going through it. Or trying to unpack.
He was trying to help you out.
Yeah. Later on that night, I started doing shit. I hear it moving things inside the room. Picked up the damn telephone receiver next to me. I dropped it.
See, that was like, for me, that was like super creepy.
Yeah.
Like that whole first night that you described, that you heard like the hangers in the closet like jingling together.
Yeah,
and
there was nothing on the hangers. It was empty closet.
And then like you heard like the phone pick up and go back down.
Yeah, it dropped about an inch.
For all you kids that the phone used to set it on the cradle. You know what I mean? And because you know what, if I was in a hotel room and I heard that like behind me, I think I would fucking.
Wasn't a hotel room. You were in a chateau.
I know. I'm just saying, but if I was in a place like that,
you were in a condo,
and heard the phone do that behind me, I would fucking I'd freak out.
The phone was weird. I think it had a phone upstairs and a phone downstairs, and it had the little lights running across the bottom like you were
like a hotel phone.
Like a hotel phone. It was like that.
Like so you could call out and
you could call the fucking main office and shit.
Right.
And I heard that receiver pick up and fall. And I was afraid to look. It was dark in there.
I'd have been afraid to look too. I'm like, I'm just gonna pretend that didn't happen.
And I waited for like 3 or 4 seconds, and I fucking looked over there because it was on the right nightstand. Oh, the one on when you're laying there is the one on the right hand side. There's one on either side of the bed. And I looked over there, and the phone was there. I could barely see it, but there was nobody standing there. I felt like someone was watching me there.
Can you imagine, like, if somebody was standing there? Oh, my God, that would be horrible.
Yeah. And I'd also heard something fucking getting drug across the floor.
Oh,
it
that's
sounded
right.
kind of heavy.
I forgot about that.
You hear it, but I couldn't see anything. It sounded like furniture. But I didn't see anything move. Weird.
Mr. Demigod said, I love topics like this. Yeah, a lot of people have been looking forward to doing because this is going to be like a whole extravaganza. Hopefully, I don't think we've covered any of these cases before. Like I said, we've probably talked about the Don Decker case, like, off and on. I thought we had done a whole show about it, but I searched and we hadn't. I was like, I find that hard to believe. So we must have, like, brought it up on some other shows and talked about it. But I don't think I've talked about any of these other cases on here. And if we have, oh well, we're just, like, repeating shit. It's all right. Alice in Wonderland says, I'm loving the mustache, Tom, and the beard.
Thanks,
Yeah, I like it too. It's just, it's funny because when I knew you for a long time and you had no facial hair.
Yeah.
And so then you decided to grow it, and I was like, we're like, oh, okay, well, we'll see how that looks. And I'm like, oh, it looks really good. Like, it's kind of surprised me that it looked really good. And he told me the other day, somebody that you know at Starbucks.
Yeah.
And
the girls that work at Starbucks.
And she didn't know you before. Yeah. Like, so she's only know you with the facial hair.
She never seen it with...
And he showed her pictures of him from,
hair.
like, a few years ago when he still had hair and, like, no facial hair. And she's like, what the fuck? Like,
yeah,
she
she's
thought
like,
it was
that's weird.
She thought it was super weird because she's only
weird.
seen you like this. Yeah. But it's
and I said, not good? And she goes, no. She says, you look better like that. You look
good both ways.
Look better bald with beard.
Yeah. I mean, it did take me a little while to get used to you looking like this because, like I said, I knew you for so many years, you know, with hair.
When you meet me like this, you expect me to look like this, I guess.
That's what I mean. Yeah. So it's like when you look different. But it's like, I met you with hair and with no facial hair.
You met me with blonde hair.
Yeah, I think, well, no, you know what? When I first met you, you had black hair. Yeah. And then, like, not too long after I met you, I think you bleached it.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure you had black hair when I met you.
It went from black to blonde, almost white.
Yeah, because your natural hair color is just a really, really dark. It's almost black. It's like a really, really dark brown. But you had it. It was black when I met you. But then not too long after that, you bleached it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then kept it bleached for a little. But mostly I've known you with black hair. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Most of the time.
I think I got a picture of me with blonde hair.
You probably
go ahead. I'll find it.
Danny Rowling said, "What's a poltergeist favorite genre of porn?" Bukkake.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a good one. Bukkake.
That is a good one. He's got all the dad jokes.
Yeah, that is a dad joke. That's a dad joke.
But yeah, so what we wanted to talk about this, and I can't remember, was it Zach or was it somebody? I can't remember like who suggested this topic, but I thought it was a good topic. It was when we were talking about poltergeist cases. It might have been when we were talking about the LaToya Ammons case, which was a few months back. And somebody said, oh, you should talk about some cases, some poltergeist cases where the focus was not a kid. Because most of the time, the focus is like a kid or like an adolescent. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's him with the blonde hair.
Yeah, standing next to
with Carrie Fisher.
With Carrie Fisher.
With a cardboard Carrie Fisher.
That's another one.
Fucking funny. Fucking funny.
Like something out of Duran Duran.
That's not me, by the way.
No,
that's his old. That's his old girlfriend.
Yeah.
That's a really old picture.
Yeah, it's 2015. No,
it was older than that.
2010.
Yeah, it must have been because we started dating in 2011.
Yeah, so 2010.
So it must have been 2010 or early 2011. Yeah. Because I think we started going out like mid 2011.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that was fucking almost 14 years ago.
Isn't that fucking crazy?
That's fucking crazy.
It doesn't seem like it.
It seems like yesterday. You're still mad about that. You're still mad about that.
I didn't
shit.
Like that girl.
Jenny was like, "Do not go out with that girl. That girl's bad." And I'm thinking,
I didn't like that.
Yeah, but I've had whole girlfriends I lived with that were about 2 or 3 times as bad as this. You know, I'm from a different world than Jen.
Well, you know,
she was bad, but they were all bad. I was used to that.
He liked his bad.
Hoes, man.
Well, and the thing about it too is that you didn't really give that much. You didn't really care that much. You were just kind of like, I'll bang her for a while.
Yeah, I'm gonna hit. Yeah.
Then I'll just move on to something else.
It was like a conveyor belt.
It was. It was
like a conveyor belt.
You were real serious about it.
I not care.
So he didn't really.
I was just expecting it to be temporary.
Yeah. He's just like, I'm just gonna have a good time, whatever.
Like 13 years later, we're still living together. I was like, shit, I might as well marry this chick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I told him about mannequins because we went back to mannequins last Friday and we haven't been for a long time. And Heather, our bartender, she was like, "Oh my God, look at you guys! You haven't been here forever." She's like, "Oh my God, you're a married couple now," because she saw it on Facebook. And and I told Tom later, I was like, to be honest, I'd actually given up on you. I thought you were never gonna ask me.
I just stopped thinking about it.
I thought you were never gonna ask me. I was just like, oh well, I guess that's not happening.
Actually, I asked you, shit, man, we're just putting all this fucking private shit. Probably about 6-7 years ago, I asked you were in a bad mood. You're like, nah, fuck that.
Because I thought you were teasing me.
Oh, no,
I didn't think you were serious.
Yeah, no, I was serious.
I didn't think you were serious.
Yeah, I was okay. We just get married then. She's like, fuck that. I was like, okay.
I think
so shot yourself in the foot.
No, I think there was some different context going on because I would have remembered if you'd like seriously asked me.
I don't remember exactly.
Yeah, so I think it was like some kind of context. Yeah. Like we were probably having a fight or something.
Yeah.
And you said something about it, and I'm like, fuck that. You're just fucking with me.
Yeah, they remember me with blonde hair. We did shows. Some of the shows.
Yeah, that's right.
That wasn't the same time. I used to go blonde every now and then.
Every now and then, yeah.
So that wasn't the time.
That wasn't that time. Because that was like before we started. Yeah. That was years before we started doing the show.
I still got some in there. I would use that damn fucking splat bleach.
Yeah. I used that a couple of times.
Still got some in there, fucking unopened, ready to go.
Yeah.
I was thinking, man, if I could fucking grow my hair out about 1/4 of an inch, 1/2 inch, and fucking dye that shit fucking damn near white, I'd have that Rob Halford look like back in the fucking 80s.
There you go.
The white head, the real short white hair. I don't know if it'd look good, though.
I don't know. It might.
Not with a black beard.
Well, no, you'd have to do the beard, too.
Yeah.
You'd have to let the beard grow gray, or...
just fucking shave the beard because it's white.
It. Yeah.
So I use that just for men.
Just for
men.
What'll happen if you put it on a woman? Will she, like, turn into a fucking pumpkin or something?
Put that shit on her bush, man. It'll fucking shave 20 years off her.
I don't have a bush.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. A lot of people don't nowadays.
Yeah.
It's just easier. Tammy says, do you believe that poltergeists have something to do with hormones, and that is why it usually comes around when the kids are going through puberty?
Yeah.
There was actually a paper in a semi-scientific journal in which I believe it was 2 Italian... I brought it up in my book, but I can't remember their names offhand. It's these 2 Italian scientists. And that's kind of what they were positing.
Yeah, I think that's a factor. One of the major... It's probably like the most likely time RSPK could happen is to a young person going through hormonal changes like that. Because now they're able to release certain amount of tensions, but on a psychic level, evidently. And a bunch of tensions building up in them. They're becoming adults. So there's conflicts between... I think it's kind of like children... I think we might be getting ahead of the subject.
Well, not really, because
children don't really have agency. So it's kind of like learned helplessness. And if they're in a situation where they have to accept certain truths that aren't true, in other words, fucking the adults are lying to them, when they get intelligent enough, when puberty happens, they start to realize that, no, I can do shit without these people. I can do my own things. But they can't. There's a conflict. They're still too young. So the subconscious starts acting out. Because they're afraid of getting in trouble.
Yeah.
So the physical body's under wraps, but let's just say, the soul is running wild, basically. It's the soul of the subconscious. It's moving objects, throwing a fucking fit. Or it's pretending to be a fucking artificial bad guy to maybe like get the family to bind together against a common enemy. Or to entertain the family, hold them together, that kind of shit.
Well, and your theory is, and from what I've seen this kind of does hold up, is that it actually works better if you think it's an outside entity, if you believe it's an outside entity. Because in your case particularly, it stopped when you realized that it was you.
Well, I suspected.
That you suspected that it was you doing it.
Because I thought it was reading my mind. It was moving objects I was thinking about.
Because while you thought it was a ghost or an outside entity, then it was doing all this crazy shit. But the second you were like, well, maybe this is me doing it, then it stopped. Then it kind of stopped.
Well, I told Red, I said, I think this thing can read my mind. And he goes, why do you think that? And I said, that object, it just moved. I was just thinking about that object.
Yeah.
He's like, really? I said, yeah, it can read my mind. And that started to fucking scare me. But then it kept doing it. And I said, maybe it's not reading my mind. Maybe I'm doing it.
Yeah.
So then I said, I'm going to make it move these objects. And it stopped it.
Yeah. So, like, somehow there's some kind of fail-safe that only lets it happen when you think it's... Yeah. When you're not aware of it or you don't have any control over it. Didn't go away.
It stopped moving things instantly, but didn't go away instantly. I still felt it watching me.
Right. And it still happened, like I said, periodically.
Sporadically, yeah.
Like, you know, in the last few years, especially when we started working on the book, like in 2017 or 2018 or whenever that was. Like, so we were talking about the case all the time and talking to Red and Lois on the phone and all this other kind of stuff. So,
kind of relived it.
Yeah, so then it kind of ramped back up again a little bit. Zach says, is the entity case in here too? No, because we did a whole show about that like a while back. I think we talked about it on one of our first shows because we talked about the movie and the actual case and how they compared. But we might have done an update. I thought we had done an update where we just talked about the Doris Bither case, didn't we?
Yeah.
Like more recently. Yeah. We did, well, and we did one on the Hernandez case too. Yeah, but it's just kind of like, But this one, like I said, we wanted to focus on ones where the focus of the poltergeist activity was an adult.
Yeah,
which
or a
is
young adult.
Unusual.
Deckard was a younger adult, I think.
Yeah, and one of the other cases on here too was a younger adult as well. But like I said, usually... And I kind of feel like almost all of the cases, because I wrote a book several years ago called The Unseen Hand that was all about poltergeist cases, like all the ones I could dig up. And I don't know what the percentage is offhand, but I would say probably like at least like 85 to 90% of the cases, the suspected focus was almost always a teenager. Or like someone going through puberty. Yeah. Almost always.
It's a way of acting out and avoiding and getting in trouble. That's what it is.
Yeah, that's what it is. You have plausible deniability because just like you can wreck shit and you know, and it's like, well, it's not me doing it. It's this thing.
Or burn shit. Didn't happen in my case, but pyrokinesis is the same thing.
And do you know what's weird is that pyrokinesis is almost overwhelmingly a girl.
Sounds like it, yeah.
Like an adolescent girl. I think there was one case where it was a boy, but it's like almost all of the cases that I wrote about. If it was fire starting poltergeist, it was always a girl.
Making a fire, strange. Making fires never occurred to me. We were never afraid of that,
right?
In our case, but had somebody mentioned, "Hey, man, this thing might start a fire,"
then it might have
probably would have done it, because that would be easy to do, because it can move large objects just fucking quickly, and evidently teleport them. I guess it's the only way some of those objects could have gotten that room. They'd be teleported in there. It'd be nothing to just agitate molecules. Those are tiny. Just get those molecules to move real fast. You're making friction and heat, and it'll boom. It'll fucking ignite. And pyrokinetic people, that's how it's described. Just a burn spot, kind of like somebody hitting it with a magnifying glass. A brown spot will appear on a wall.
Yeah, like on the wallpaper.
It'll smoke and fucking. You're right. Like somebody had a magnifying glass to it. And what's funny is that it's always timed perfectly, which just sounds like everything with the poltergeist. Everything's timed perfectly. Like the fire starts just as you see it, just as you're walking into a room. It never happens when you're not never happens when you're not around to stop it. It's always happening when you're around to stop it.
Yeah, I mean, there were a couple of cases that I read about that were old, where, you know, but I don't think anybody got killed, but it's like sometimes like an old barn or something like that would burn down completely. Mm-hmm. So there was that. Ben said it's Stephen King's fault because of Firestarter. Although there were a lot of cases of that before. I think he got the idea from the poltergeist cases that had happened previously. Because there were some going back to like the 18th century.
People always point out fiction like Star Wars.
Sorry, that's my phone.
God damn it, fucking phone. Star Wars with the Force, and then fucking Stephen King with all of his fucking pyrokinetic people and psychokinetic people and people that see ghosts and shit. They didn't make any of that up. During the 70s, the California university systems took that shit very seriously. They had a whole parapsychological department. It was respected by other scientific departments because they weren't faking anything. They were trying to see if it was possible. And they did take some of these cases seriously. And they were trying to theorize, well, what is happening in physics to, now it's called like fucking non-locality and quantum consciousness, and they got top guys like Stuart Hameroff working on that. And Stuart Hameroff, and he's an anesthesiologist that is into consciousness. And who was the other guy? Fucking that was
Roger Penrose.
Roger Penrose, yeah.
Who's a physicist?
He's a big physicist, and they're talking about things that would make all this plausible, which leads me to believe that I've seen it. I know it's real, so they figured it out. If you ask me, they figured it out. Just they can't prove it yet. Yeah,
I mean it makes sense, like the tack that they're coming at it from. I must say,
microtubules in the brain. That part of your brain. You're not a digital computer. You're analog. And part of the processes that are happening inside the neurons of your brain are quantum. It's quantum computation. And it's not supposed to happen in a warm, wet environment. But they're saying that some of the materials inside the fucking, like where the dendrites are, there's all these microtubules that seem to be made out of proteins that act as like a metamaterial. That photons can fucking fire down them at basically the speed of light. So each brain cell has got millions and millions of these little things with photons running through there. Well, and then when you start dealing with these subatomic particles, you start dealing with quantum entanglement. And once that happens, Newtonian physics is out the window. Certain parts of your consciousness is not Newtonian. It's outside normal space-time. Which means that if part of it is outside normal space-time, it can do things like cheat. So it's a way of cheating physics, using consciousness. Sounds fucking crazy, but they believe it's plausible. And I've seen it.
I mean, the universe is pretty weird.
Yeah, the universe is much weirder than you think it is. Now, the whole thing about fucking George Lucas and the Force and these Jedi and shit, he didn't invent that either. That was all Buddhism and Germanic philosophy kind of merged together.
Well, yeah, fiction. People who write fiction,
they're not inventing anything.
Me. You just get ideas from other,
right.
And I got a lot of ideas from like nonfiction, from like science books I read and like weird cases and shit. I got a lot of ideas from that kind of stuff.
Evidently, the Buddhists and some Shinto people over in Japan have back I think it was 1700s to the 1400s, around that era. There were some people that had observed poltergeist activity in young girls that were servant girls. And they describe it exactly like a modern poltergeist case.
Yeah, I wrote about some really old ones like that.
Yeah. They had a samurai guy who's of the samurai class investigating it, and the girl could make pots and pans jump around and dance, and it would rip silk fabric and rip the paper walls when nobody was around. Did weird shit like that. Did things behind your back. And they homed in on this girl who was about 13 who worked there. And he thought it was an imbalance of yin and yang. An imbalance of, I guess, good and positive energy, negative and positive energy in her. And his advice was to fire that girl. So they fired her and it stopped.
That's what they usually tell
you. Yeah, they said fire that girl, and she left and it stopped.
Because there have been, I read about several cases too, where it was like a teenage servant girl that was in the house that they thought was causing the shit. Sebastian
and they knew she wasn't doing it with her hands because it would happen while her hands were in plain view.
Yeah.
Something would happen.
Sebastian says, in my investigations, I found that there was poltergeist activity or infestation in properties that had different residents and sometimes empty houses. What happened to Tom could be a different or similar phenomena.
I don't know what he's getting at.
Well, it's just saying that it might not necessarily just be from a single person. It might just be from some kind of... He said he saw some in empty houses and houses that had more than one
poltergeist cases aren't just the focus. Not just the kid. It's the family. It's a group synergy. It seems when you have a certain group of people around, they can their effects on each other can cause it to happen from that kid. Something didn't happen when I was back at home. It only happened when I was with Lois and Red. It only happened when we were together for that period.
Yeah. So it had something to do with the family dynamic.
Had something to do with family dynamics.
Yeah. Yeah, that does seem to be the case.
Yeah.
Because the weird thing about it is that sometimes, like, there'll be cases where they thought, oh, this teenage girl or whatever was the focus of it, so they sent them away to boarding school, and then, like, nothing happens when they're out of that environment. Because, what we're saying is that there has to be some kind of synergy between the other people around, the environment that they're in, and maybe once they're out of that environment, it doesn't trigger the shit
In this
anymore.
case, in my case, I didn't want to go back home. I wanted to live with Lois and Red and Wes. I didn't really want to go back home.
Yeah.
So this was in some way of binding us together.
Yeah.
That's what I believe it was.
Yeah, it was like a bonding thing almost.
Me and Red fucking against a ghost. Yeah. We called it a bloast. Because we needed code words so nobody knew what we were talking about. They would never know what we were talking about when we're talking about a bloast. You see that bloast did it through that and this and that? Yeah.
Although I think if people heard the whole context, they would know what you were talking about.
Yeah, we were goofing. Red was fucking, he was brave, man, for a dude he was young, he was in his 20s and had never really seen anything up to this point. Fucking never really even been anywhere, just some California guy.
Yeah.
He was fucking brave enough to go downstairs by himself in the fucking dark to investigate.
Like after they heard like weird fucking noises.
They heard that chain pop on the fucking door, but he didn't see it. He didn't see it on his way back up. Next morning I saw it. He went downstairs and said, that last room, the bed's pushed up against the door. I can't open the door.
Like from the inside.
From the inside. So
and nobody was in there.
And I was fucking spooked. That bed was weighed a lot. It was a fucking bunk bed. And I was just a big chilling effect on me. It pushed it from inside. He goes, yeah, I can't open the door. And I was sleeping upstairs on a couch by that time. And I was just big chill. I was like, oh. I could feel it watching me. Yeah.
Yeah. He's reliving it.
Mm-hmm.
Now that we're talking about it, like shit's probably gonna happen tonight. I was like, how much I bet you $5 that the Xbox comes on by itself tonight.
Maybe.
Now it is possible that I guess that Pookie could be hitting it with her nose or something.
No, I was awake.
But
when I was awake, falling asleep when it happened, she wasn't around.
But yeah,
I heard it go dink.
Yeah, it makes a little chiming noise like when it comes on.
Yeah, and look, and I saw the little Xbox symbol was on, and I reached forward and grabbed the control and turned it off. She wasn't anywhere near that truck.
Oh, okay. So that was the only explanation I could think of. Yeah. Is that Pookie went and like poked it or something.
Electronics, that's easy to mess with.
Yeah, that's true. It does happen a lot. But yeah, so we were kind of interested to explore some of these cases where the focus was not what you would normally see in that kind of, in the, like, not an adolescent. You know what I mean? So like some of these are young adults, some of them are old, like elderly. So there's that as well. I think I have 5 cases, but you know, we'll just see how it goes when we talk about it, because I know that this is one of Tom's favorite subjects.
Yeah.
So he might have a lot of input on some of these, because I think the Don Decker case is really the only one of these that you're familiar with, maybe. You know?
Yeah. What? I was reading.
I think the Don Decker case is the only one of these that you might be real familiar with. The other ones you might not.
Yeah.
We'll get your insights on this other stuff.
Unless you dug up any new stuff. At one time I was totally up to date on Don Decker and everything that happened.
You know what? I looked for any updates, and there really wasn't anything. Like I said, last I heard he got out of prison, and that was maybe 2017, 18, something like that. But it's like maybe later, but I haven't heard anything about him since then.
He went to prison because his boss hired him to burn down the business that they worked at. They were going to split the fucking insurance money. He got 5 years for that. Arson.
Yeah.
But yeah, his boss hired him to do it. It's not like it was doing it to somebody who didn't want it to happen. It's just insurance fraud.
Yeah, that's what that was. I don't know if the boss got any prison time.
Probably did.
Maybe so. But I know he did. But yeah, so poor guy. I kind of feel bad for him. Mm-hmm. They did a Unsolved Mysteries about him back in the 90s. That's where I first heard about the case, actually.
Yeah.
So these cases, I actually just did them in like chronological order. So the first one I want to talk about is from 1962. And this is usually just known as the Indianapolis Poltergeist case, or I've seen it called the Beck Poltergeist case, not that Beck. That was just their last name. Now, the interesting thing about this case, something I thought was interesting, was that this is 3 women in a house. It was a grandma, a mom, and the daughter. Now, the daughter, whose name was Linda, was actually 13, so she was like the prime kind of age for a poltergeist focus. However, no account of this case that I've read has anything to do with her. There's like, she wasn't even present for a lot of the stuff, and it didn't seem like any of the activity was focused around her the way a lot of times it obviously is. They actually thought that the focus in this case was probably the older woman who was 61 at the time, or possibly the middle one who was 32, I believe. But no account says that they thought it was the 13-year-old girl. So that's why this is kind of unusual. There was a 13-year-old girl, but they didn't think she was the center of anything. So as I said, this happened in 1962. Now, so this is 3 generations of women living in one house. They'd lived there for quite a while, I believe. It wasn't like they just moved in or anything like that. But very suddenly, this was in March of 1962. It was a little past 10 at night. Renate Beck, who was the 32-year-old woman, she was at home. Her daughter, Linda, was at home, who was 13, like I said. And then she had a mom named Lena Gamecki, who was widowed, and she was 61. Now, Linda, the 13-year-old girl, she was in the living room just hanging out watching TV or whatever. The 2 older women are in the kitchen just like cleaning up or whatever. And then all of a sudden, this glass beer mug that had been in the sink like lifted out of the sink and then kind of like went behind a flower pot like that was right there like on the sink or whatever.
They saw this?
Yeah, they were both in there.
All right, yeah.
And they just saw that happen. So they're like, what? Okay, what the fuck? But they, you know, as you would, they had never seen anything weird happen in this house before. Like I said, they lived here for quite a while. So they just thought, oh, well, there has to be some explanation for that. Maybe it was an earthquake or maybe a big truck went by or something like that. Like they just kind of came up with something like that.
Jen saw the remote fly off the table.
Yeah.
With some friends were over at the time that happened. And they were just kind of stunned. They couldn't believe that it happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't notice that it happened until I saw them. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess that did happen.
Well, I mean, you're not expecting it, right, for one thing. And then immediately your brain starts trying to come up with like a rational explanation. Like the first thing I thought, like I saw the remote go flying, the first thing I thought was, did I kick the coffee table?
Yeah.
I knew I didn't kick the coffee table.
It's a glass coffee table.
I knew I didn't kick the coffee table.
You're right.
But that was just like the first thing I thought, oh, I must have kicked the coffee table without realizing it.
Yeah.
And like sent the thing flying.
We tried to reproduce it and it didn't make the same sound or anything.
But, you know, so I thought about it for a second and then I looked over at our friends over there and they were just like, their eyes were like this and they were like looking at me. They're like, did you just see that happen? And I was like, oh, okay, I thought I just kicked the table, but I guess not. I didn't.
Yeah, it's weird.
And we did try to reproduce it, like I said, and we couldn't.
Back in the day, I'd have fucking jumped out of my skin.
Now it's just kind of like...
be tearing my hair out of how that happened. Why? How did it do that? What did it mean? What's it trying to tell me?
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. But I can get beyond it a lot easier now. Like, okay, it just does things.
Yeah, and it's not, like I said, at this point, when I saw this happen in the house, we had already discussed it to a great degree, and I had already pretty much come to the same conclusion that you did, that it's like it was a manifestation of you.
Yeah.
So it didn't really scare me.
It had already torn down that molding.
Yeah, it surprised me.
Yeah.
But, you know, because I wasn't expecting it. Yeah. I was like, oh, that was kind of neat.
Imagine it doing that every 5 or 10 minutes.
Right.
That's what it's like when it's really kicked off. Mm. And a lot of it's happening in rooms that you're not in. You hear it happening in there. You go in there and you find a fucking ruckus. You know, furniture tipped over and shit.
Can you describe the ruckus, sir?
Yeah. It's making patterns on the ground with fucking hand towels and shit.
Yeah.
Making happy faces and crap.
Yeah, that was pretty weird.
Fucking freaky. Yeah.
Danny Rowling said a TV show revolving around all the paranormal cases that college parapsychology departments handled would be stellar as fuck to see. Yeah, I agree. That would actually be a good show where they took it like more seriously and not just like the stupid Ghost Hunter shows. Yeah, like an evolved version of the show, A Haunting.
They don't. The universities don't have those departments anymore. That's the problem.
Yeah, but I mean, you could go back to when they did.
You're right. Yeah.
I think there's 1 or 2 colleges left in the United States that still have a parapsychology department, but
Military is still interested in it.
Yeah, I mean, you know.
Yeah. Did Project Stargate under a couple different names.
It's funny because last night I just started rewatching Stephen King's Rose Red. Because I've been wanting to rewatch that for a long time. I haven't seen that shit since it was on TV, like back in 2002. And so I was on Facebook the other day and somebody said, oh my God, they finally put it on Hulu, because I was just looking to watch it the other day and I couldn't find the fucking thing. And then it's like, somebody just put it on Hulu. You know, Hulu just put it on Hulu, obviously. So I was like, woohoo. So, you know, Tom went to bike night last night. I said, well, shit, I'm just going to sit down with some snacks and, like, watch this shit. So I watched the first 2 parts, but I haven't watched the third one yet. I might do, like, a thing about it for my Scare Salon channel. But it's interesting because in that show, in that series, the woman who's like the main person, she's like in the parapsychology department, and her college is in the process of getting rid of the parapsychology department. So they're all like making fun of her. So she's like hoping if she gets her little ghost hunting team together and they go to Rose Red and like she gets proof, then she'll be able to like keep her job. You know what I mean? So that's why it reminded me of that.
Ben says maybe Duke University. So I don't know.
I think it is Duke University is one of the ones. It might be the only one that's left that still has parapsychology. I thought there were 2, but I can't remember what.
Back in the day in California, the big one from what I remember, I think it was Lois that told me, it was UCLA. They had a pretty.
Yeah. They had one.
It was like one of the main ones in the world.
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting field of study. You know what I mean? Yeah. If you kept it.
Lois worked for the damn observatory for Dr. Penner. Is his name? What was it? Palomar University, I think is what it was called.
Yeah.
And Palomar Observatory. That's where Lois worked. She worked for a guy named Dr. Penner. And she knew Carl Sagan. And
that
she
foxy
told
motherfucker.
She told the Dr. Penner about it, and he blew her off. He's like, "Oh, that's fucking crazy." He came back 3 or 4 days later. He goes, "No, I'm sorry. Yeah, what you're talking about is poltergeist. That's where we first heard the word."
Yeah.
And he goes, one of my colleagues says that that's a real phenomenon. He works, and he's a parapsychologist, and he must have been talking about UCLA, because they were all that's all California stuff. But that's the first time I'd ever heard the word poltergeist, and Lois told us that story a couple weeks after it happened.
Right.
I said, okay, poltergeist, that's what it was. Yeah.
Michael Cernicki says, I feel like I witnessed a paranormal event. I was sleeping, and as I was waking up, I felt something blowing on my neck, and when I opened my eyes, black clouds went into the ceiling. Ooh, that's fucking creepy. Again, I would probably shit a brick. Zach says, oh shit, a scripted drama show about a parapsychology department would be the shit. I agree. That actually would be a really good show. I'd watch it. Yeah, so they're talking about Rose Red. Rose Red is also on YouTube. Was it really? I couldn't find it on there before, because I was looking for it like a few months ago, because I wanted to. Because I had just done, over on my Scare Salon channel, I did Stephen King's Storm of the Century, and I was like, oh man, I should do Rose Red, because I remember really liking that, and I couldn't find it anywhere. So I was really excited when somebody told me it was on Hulu, because I was like, well shit, I'm excited. So I watched the first part and most of the second part last night. So I'll probably do it on my other channel. But yeah, so it'll take me a while to like watch the rest of it and like make a video about it. But yeah. Yeah, let me see. Oh, there was something else I wanted to see. Oh, Camp Guy said Surreal Estate is a new show about a real estate agency that specialized in haunted houses and selling them. That's pretty awesome. But yeah, okay. So let's get back to this, because I've only talked about like one.
Yeah, we do got a lot of shit to cover.
Yeah, we got a lot of shit to cover. Like I said, I do want your input on the stuff,
yeah,
but it's like we can't get too much off topic, or we'll be here all night. And actually, they're doing well, I don't think it'll take this long, but they're doing maintenance on our Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Starting at midnight.
Yeah.
EST. So.
This can't go on long.
So we can't. Well, I mean, we still have like 4 hours, yeah. So it's all right. But yeah, they told us it might shut off after midnight because they're working on it. So yeah, so the 2 women, they see the glass mug, it goes behind the flower pot, and they're just like, huh, that was fucking weird, or whatever. But then they kind of just like blew it off, like you do. Not too long after that, though, about 20 minutes later, both of them hear this big crash, like coming from upstairs. Now, at this point, they're not thinking paranormal. Like I said, you wouldn't. Renate, which I guess is how you pronounce her name, she thought, well, somebody broke into the house. There had been like a rash of robberies in the neighborhood, so she thought, oh, well, the person that's robbing the shit is like, is in here now. So the two older women, they go upstairs to find out what's going on, but nobody's up there. They did find out what the crash was, though. It was this big, huge crystal bowl that had been on a bookshelf up there. It was completely broken, but they couldn't figure out how it had gotten so far away from the shelf that it was on, because it was like several feet away from the shelf that it had been on, and it was all like busted. So they thought that was pretty weird. Later on that same evening, an ashtray, which was also made of glass, flew across the living room and broke. And then another piece of crystal, it was all the glass and crystal in the house, like kind of jumped off a shelf and also broke. Now at this point, the family is like, fuck this shit, and they went and stayed in a hotel. Because, at least they didn't like hang out. Because, all this fucking shit's happening in their house. They're like, yeah, we're going to go stay in a hotel. So they come back the next day. Now, nothing had apparently broken while they were gone, because everything kind of looked the same as it had. But they hadn't been back in the house for that long before pretty much most of the glass and crystal items in the house just started like flying off shelves and breaking in several rooms simultaneously, they said. Yeah. It was just like one thing after another. So they didn't really know what to do at this stage. So Renee calls a couple of her friends. She knew this guy named Emil Nozeda and his wife. Like, I think she had been his, like, she had worked for him, like, in the past, but they were still, like, friends. She called the cops also. So the cops came to the house. The friends came to the house, and the cops came to the house. So the first cop gets there. His name was John Mullen. He was a sergeant. And obviously he did not buy that this was paranormal in any way, shape, or form. So he looks around the house. There's broken shit everywhere. And he said, oh, well, maybe you guys were playing your stereo too loud, and it was sound waves that caused all of this stuff to come off the shit and break. So they're like, bro, all we have is this dinky little record player, which doesn't even work. We don't have a big stereo system. We don't have big speakers. We don't have nothing like that. So it's just like, I don't know what to tell you. There's like, we weren't playing the stereo too loud. So another cop shows up. His name is Ray Patton. And so he's kind of looking around downstairs. And then there's this big, huge crash, again, from upstairs. And then they all go up there to see what it was. And it was another glass object. It was like a glass swan. And this was in the daughter's room. And this had kind of also flown off a shelf and broken. Nobody was in the room at the time that this happened, apparently. Now, this same cop also claimed later that he saw something kind of extraordinary, like while they were showing him around the house.
So we got a police witness.
Yeah, well, at least two. There were two cops at the house. And the friends, like, saw something too, and I'm going to get into that. So, Renee says to the cop, because there's broken shit everywhere, like I said. So she's like, there's this mirror that was up there, and it was broken. And she said that got broken because this glass ashtray flew off the nightstand and smashed into it. And then she says, well, I have this set of crystal glasses that were like a family heirloom or something like that, and I was really afraid they were going to get broken. They had all been on display in the room. Now, 3 of them were already broken. So she had already broken like in the poltergeist activity. So she was like freaking out. So she's like, for some reason, I thought like to protect the last 3, she put like a hat over them.
Oh yeah, that protected.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, it's like she didn't know what else to do, yeah. I guess. And so she lifts the hat up. She says, see, I put them under a hat. You know what I mean? Because like I said, I don't know what she was thinking, but she probably wouldn't. What would you do? So he's like, okay. So they all go out in the hall. And when the cop was the last one in line. And when he's leaving the room, one of the glasses that had been underneath the hat, like hit him in the back.
Yeah. Was the hat still there?
Huh?
Was the hat still sitting there?
Yeah.
So it went through the hat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it broke. It hit his back really hard, and then it broke.
Yeah. It's exactly the kind of shit that we were seeing. Exactly like that.
Yeah.
It either passes through matter or it teleports. It might just teleport in motion halfway across the room. I'm not sure. Some of the shit that seemed awful odd. You'd look at it, you'd see it, you'd look at an object. Next thing you know, it was halfway across the room, flying straight at you and hit you in the chest. You didn't really see it pick up off the table and travel half the way. It was just there, halfway across the room and hit you. So I don't know. It's difficult to know what actual path of the object, what path it took. It just arrives. You don't see it depart. It's weird.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, like, everyone's back was to it. Yeah. Like, everyone was out of the room but him. It's almost like back was to it.
It's almost like it can't really move it while you're looking at it. It has to be unperceived. And then it becomes kind of like in a neutral zone, like Schrodinger's cat. You're not sure where its location is. And when you're not looking at it, it's now fair game for that phenomena to manipulate it. You don't see it until it arrives. You didn't see it depart, though. You weren't looking. It's weird. Maybe when you see it arriving, it doesn't have a hold of it anymore. So you can see it. I don't know. Something like that.
Yeah, I mean...
Some of the stuff was just moving, though. Like chairs rocking.
Right.
You know. But it had a weird blur on the back of it. And as soon as I saw it rocking, I just fucking froze and ran from it. Red was sitting there fucking just mesmerized. It had a whole stack of fucking laundry on it. And it wasn't falling off. It was weird.
Yeah, that's freaky.
Yeah.
But yeah, this part in particular is what kind of reminded me, because you were saying how stuff would teleport, like, or go through objects.
Yeah.
Because apparently, so the cop is the last one out. Everyone else is out of the room, and his back is to it. So one of the glasses hits him in the back really hard, and then falls on the floor and breaks. And then a second later, there was another crash.
Yeah.
And he turned, and there was another glass broken, but the hat was still there. And he went over there and picked the hat up, and that one glass was still underneath.
That's it. That's a phenomenon. That's a perfect way of describing it.
That reminded me.
That's what it's like.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any fucking sense.
No.
Whatever it is, it's bending the laws of physics. Some people are going like, well, how could it pick this invisible thing, picking things up? It doesn't. It's almost like it's not using any energy to do it. You know, it's not like fucking, you know, Luke Skywalker trying to move the fucking X-Wing or something. It just does it spontaneously, and there doesn't seem to be any energy involved. It's just changed location somehow, and it had energy when it arrived. It's some kind of physics we don't understand yet. Some kind of weird phenomenon.
Probably.
Quantum. It's quantum physics.
Yeah.
Whatever's happening is happening in a higher spatial dimension. You're not seeing all of it. It's outside. Most of what's happening, I think, is in another dimension, or it's quantum entanglement, maybe. You know about the object, so your mind can influence it as long as you're not looking at it, because when you're not looking at it, it's just potentially in one place or another. Something like that. I noticed that early as a kid. It doesn't move something you're looking directly at.
Yeah, that seems
like
very common.
Yeah, like it can't move it.
Like I've written about a lot of cases, and I really can't think of hardly any cases where people said they saw something lift up. Usually when they saw it, it was already in motion, or it was already
Whenever the case says I saw something lift up and do this and do that, there are other aspects of that case that make me question it. I think it's a fraud. Although sometimes it could be a real case, it's just that the person is describing the event inaccurately. They filled in the blanks, saying, I saw it lift up. And
right.
But really, if you probably reviewed it back, their memory, they never saw it lift up. It was already in motion when they saw it.
Yeah, when I saw the remote control, I didn't see it physically lift up off the table. It was already in the air.
Yeah.
Because it was... Now, it wasn't like out of the corner of my eye. It was just under my field of vision, because I was just looking 2 or 3 feet above it, and it was like it was really right in front of me.
It moved into your field of vision.
I didn't see it pick up off the table. I just saw it like in the air, and I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right. It's like that every time.
Right.
Like it can't move it.
If you're looking directly at it.
When I was looking at that one pin, I was backing out of the room. I'd asked it to write something. I was looking at a pen. I was backing out of the room and closing the door, and I was looking at that pen, and I was wanting to see it jump up and start writing. I just saw a flash, and it was already halfway across the room, and it hit me in the chest. Well, that flash might have been me blinking my eye.
Right.
And as soon as my eye blinked, it was now in a neutral zone where that force could act on it. And because it was probably trying to, as long as I was looking at it. The second my eyes closed, it was able to move it. Because there's nothing that could do timing that accurate. Like it's watching your eyeball and going, wait for him to blink his eye, and then I'll throw it. It couldn't have been that. There wasn't enough time. It was more like it was trying to move it. As soon as my eyes blinked,
it started moving.
It started moving.
Yeah.
It's the only explanation.
Because, like I said,
how could you time it?
I don't necessarily think it's an intelligence.
It's a subconscious. It's an intelligence. It's just not your waking intelligence.
Just not, yeah, but like not the way people would think of it.
It's the same thing that controls the characters in your dreams. And those characters do things to you.
I think that's a good way of putting it.
Those characters do things to you that surprise you, and they say things to you that surprise you, and they come up with your own shit, and some of them even attack you. That's why I'm scared of this thing. It's you, but it's a different version of you. It's running all them puppets.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't worry about it because it's you, but then I think to myself, yeah, but what if you got really mad?
Wouldn't
someday?
Be me, it'd be a subconscious version.
Right, but it's still you. It's still an aspect of you. And it's like, what if you got so mad that you just like fucking lost your fucking shit and it started doing stuff that hurt me or hurt you?
I know, that's what I'm worried
about. Or
about.
something.
Well, Donnie Deckard said it grabbed him around the throat and lifted him up and shook him like a rag doll and threw him on the ground. And I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it.
Yeah. I mean...
And somebody saw him lift up like...
Yeah, we'll get to that. There were several witnesses that saw that shit.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm pretty skeptical about this stuff, but if everybody kind of
How could you be skeptical? You've seen it.
No, I know, but I'm just saying
there's certain aspects I'm not sure about.
I'm just saying that if just some random motherfucker said, "Oh, I saw this, that, and the other," it's like my first instinct is to like not believe them or think that they misperceived it. But the more witnesses you have that be like, "Yeah, I saw that shit," and they're and they tell you the same story even when they're not like together and stuff, then I'm kind of more inclined to think that maybe there's something to it.
Well, now that you've gotten a little taste of it, you haven't even seen it when it's strong.
Yeah.
When I was 14, that bitch was fucking stellar.
Yeah.
It'd make you a believer in fucking 20 minutes.
Yeah. You know? Like I said, it's weird, but because we had already talked about it so much, when I saw it, it didn't scare me.
Yeah. But you'll have a whole fucking crisis. Like, how could this be? They say this isn't true. This is not supposed to be happening. But I know that this happened, and there's no other explanation. And
I would probably just...
Then it continues doing things.
I'd just be like, oh, well, I guess that happens now.
It was a pre-internet world, and we didn't know what to do about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it, because it's like that wasn't really...
You couldn't call the cops.
Right.
They'd lock you up. And when they didn't have any money, couldn't leave.
Right.
They were young and broke. And I was just a kid.
Yeah.
And it was fucking snowing outside.
Yep. So very much like The Shining. You were kind of stuck there for a little while.
We weren't alone, though. There were other bungalows, but I don't know how many of them were full.
Yeah.
So we weren't alone per se, but we couldn't tell anybody. We were only there for a couple of days.
Yeah, you said you were there for like a week or 5 days. 5 days
4
or something
days,
like that.
5 days, something like that. And then went back to Lois's house, and it was happening there.
Yeah.
So it wasn't the place.
That was totally you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I said, you'd never been there before. And as far as I know, nobody ever reported any weird activity up there.
And it got better at Lois's house. So it was... I had forgotten a lot of it. Red reminded me of it because I didn't want to remember it. But he remembered some of the things that it did. Threw that knife and shit. That was weird.
Yeah. Okay, so let's see. Where was I? Okay, so yeah, the thing with the hat. So the glass is still there. Yeah. So these two cops are still in the house. Now, a couple more cops did come, so there were more cops in the house. Also, neighbors started kind of collecting around there, being like, what the fuck is... Because they see all the cops, and they're like, what the fuck is going on? They said they had so many neighbors, like, around the house and so many looky-loos and stuff that they had to, like, get cops out there to, like, direct traffic because they were, like, clogging the traffic up, you know what I mean? Now, the cops that came... Because they were still adhering to this, like, all of this destruction is caused by sound vibrations theory, they decided they were going to bring some equipment to measure and see if this was the case. They wanted to detect, like, some high-frequency vibrations or whatever the fuck. So they did that, but of course they didn't find anything unusual. One thing that was interesting was that while all the equipment was running, there was absolutely no manifestations at all. But as soon as they turned the shit off, then it started up again. So some cops were still in the house at this point. And then apparently these little fang-like wounds started showing up on Renate, who was the 32-year-old, and Lena, who was the 61-year-old, like on their arms and stuff.
They felt it bite?
I guess. I'm not really sure, but the cops reported that they saw them, like, you know, just spontaneously appearing. Like, it looked like snake bites or something like that, like little fangs.
Now, the cop that got hit in the back, did he make a statement? Did he say anything about it?
I don't know. I guess that's all he said, but, you know, I mean, that's what happened. That was just in the report.
Cops saw it at the infield, too. Scared him.
Yeah. Well, like I said, several cops saw this one.
Yeah. The infield case, the reporter saw it. He said he saw little Lego bricks bouncing around. And he said, I had a very strange feeling.
He got hit in the head with a Lego brick.
Yeah. And he was trying to be a British as shit. You know what I mean? During the interview, he's like,
you are just British as shit.
Yeah, you see this, and of course, I had a very strange feeling. He said, I know what you're talking about. You got so fucking scared, you nearly passed out. You get vertigo. Yeah. That's his very strange feeling. He just didn't want to fucking show weakness, I guess.
Well, no, I mean the Brits love to. They're very like they like to like downplay.
Yeah, everything. Very strange fucking feeling. You know what I mean? I got you, bro.
Like everything is like understated.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, very strange feeling. Shit in your pants.
Yeah,
nearly fucking losing.
That is
your
a pretty
shit.
strange feeling.
Yeah, I get so scared, man, during that first few days that I'd fucking get vertigo, like I was gonna pass out.
Well, like I said, that's not surprising because you were a kid, you'd never seen anything like that before, you didn't know anything like that existed, and I
just feared something like that existed.
And the phenomena that you saw was extreme.
Yeah.
By any measure.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was very active.
Yeah. And then it made blood. Them 3 drops of blood on the toilet paper. That had me fucking, fuck, where'd he get that blood? Lois has that.
Yeah, she's still got it, as far as I know.
We could do DNA tests on that.
Because she sent me a picture of it
when
we were doing the book.
We could do DNA tests on that and see whose blood that is.
That would be... I know. You probably should do that one of these days.
Yeah.
I don't think it's cheap to do a DNA test, and that's not a lot of blood.
Yeah.
It's 3, like, tiny little drops. But maybe they could do it. But we probably don't have enough money to do it, though. But yeah, so the 2 older women, they look like they're getting bit by snakes or something like that, like just spontaneously on their arms. Later on, Renate had a purse, like her purse, and it had $125 in it, like in cash. And the purse disappeared. So the cops did not think this was paranormal because they're like, well, look, we've had all these cops and friends and stuff like that through here, so somebody must have taken it. So they locked down the house and like searched everybody, but could not find the purse. Like nobody that was in there had taken anything. So this friend of hers, like I said, her former employer, his name was Emil Nozeda, who I mentioned earlier, he actually stayed, him and his wife stayed in the house with them like for the next few days because he was curious about what was going on. And he said in his statement that pretty much every piece of glass and crystal that was in the house was broken. After that happened, then all the dishes got broken. And then all of the furniture started moving around, like couches and shit, like would move around by themselves.
Broke all the dishes because it upset them, and then the more they worried about fucking the dishes, the more it broke the dishes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like all the dishes got broken too. Yeah. So man, hopefully they had insurance on that shit because everything is busted.
It's pissed off.
I guess so.
Yeah.
He also reported that he saw the weird fang wounds appearing on both Renee's and
but no information
Lena's
that they
arms.
felt it bite, huh?
They didn't really say anything about it. It's just she just seems like it was mostly like other people that witnessed it.
Were they breaking the skin, or is it just
I guess so, because they said it looked like. They said it looked like a fanged animal had bitten them, like a snake or something. Like little puncture wounds.
Okay.
They said
if there was blood, they would have reported that though. Maybe it's just a bite, like a cat bite. If a cat playing around biting you and it doesn't go through the skin, maybe.
Maybe, I don't know. But I mean, that would still be pretty weird, like seeing that just spontaneously.
Yeah. I'd like to know if they felt it or if they just saw it appear.
I mean, I'm sure they probably felt it. I would imagine.
Did they feel a mouth, or did they just feel the fucking spikes going in? That's weird.
Man, if they'd said they felt a mouth, I'm sure that would have been reported somewhere.
Yeah.
So this guy, this friend who was staying with them, he also said that he was sitting at the kitchen table one afternoon, and they had this like hanging lamp over the kitchen table, like you did back then, and it just kind of fell suddenly. So he went up, and it had just been hanging like from its wire, like on a nail or whatever. And he's like, well, the nail was fine. It wasn't pulled out or nothing. So he pulled the nail out and put like a stronger one in there and then put the lamp back on. But he said 20 minutes later, it fell again and broke on the table. Also, this guy, Emil, whose wife was also there, like I said, and all three of the women who lived in the house, they're all in the living room. They hear all of this noise coming from the kitchen. And when they go in the kitchen, there were 3 steak knives, which had been in the cutlery drawer, obviously. They were on the floor in a cross shape, which again was kind of similar to something that you described.
Yeah, making shapes.
Yeah. So Emil is like, what the fuck that? So he picks the knives up and puts them back in the drawer. Everybody goes back in the living room. And then they hear another noise a few minutes later, go back, and the knives were right back in the cross shape again on the floor. So there was also that. There was also there was a clinical psychologist named David Blumenthal who was called in to investigate this, and also the very famous parapsychologist William Roll. He also came out to the house to investigate. I read a bunch of his books back in the 70s. So, so he got there. So, like I said, there's a lot of witnesses to this one. Now, so William Roll gets there. He said for the first 2 days he was in the house, he didn't see anything. But on the 3rd day, he was in the kitchen alone, but he could see everybody else in the house. Like, they were all like within his field of vision. So he hears a noise in the hall. He goes to check on it, and there's like a bath brush, like one of the, like to scrub your back or whatever. And it was just sitting like on one of the stairs, and it had just like spontaneously appeared there. And nobody had put it there, apparently.
Yeah, it's typical.
Yeah. It's just random
typical shit.
It's random shit.
This is a real phenomenon. Yeah. In other words, I'm saying this is a real case just by what they're talking about. That matches up perfectly.
Yeah, like I said.
There's no rhyme or reason to it, no deeper message. Just kind of random displays of things that it can do. And they would tend to kind of get a little bit more sophisticated as it went. Like it was learning. It's weird. Very weird. But it shows you what's possible with consciousness. Somehow.
Yeah, it's pretty weird.
Yeah.
Here's another thing that I thought you might find interesting, because this is something that we've talked about before, like on some other cases that we've talked about, particularly like the Demon House case, the one in Seattle. You know what I mean? Yeah. Well, not Seattle, but outside of Seattle. With what was his name? Keith Linder. Yeah. So a couple days after that, William Roll has been staying in the house, and he's in the daughter's room, and there was a vase in there that had been in the kitchen, but it was in her room now. And it was made of glass. Apparently this was one of the very few glass items that was still intact at this point. And it fell like right at between his feet, like just kind of like off the shelf, with a really loud noise, but it didn't break.
Yeah, sounds familiar, doesn't it?
Right. That's what I'm saying. And we've talked about that before. Like, that's a pretty common, I know this is like really weird, but it's pretty commonly reported in poltergeist stuff that stuff will hit the floor and it either makes a lot more noise than you'd think or a lot less noise.
It's never the right amount.
It's never the right amount of noise.
Yeah. And you try to recreate it, throw the object again on the same surface. It doesn't sound anything like that.
Yeah. That's kind of, like I said, we had that happen with the remote control.
Yeah.
Because it made like a much louder bang than it would have, and it didn't bounce. There was that too. And then I think in the Keith Linder case, like it was just one of those little plastic, those little round plastic lights. They're like battery powered, and you just like stick them on the wall, and you just push them and they come on. One of those fell off the wall, and it made like a really, really loud ruckus. Even though it was just plastic, it should have just gone, you know what I mean, and made like a nothing noise. So it's like Steve Mara, when he was like, we went up there and we kept like pitching this thing at the floor trying to make it make that noise again, and it just wouldn't. Yeah. He's like now we recorded the sound that it made, and he's like the sound what do you call that? The
spectrometer.
Yeah, like the sound thing on the sound thing. Yeah. Looked the same, but it was like much louder, like on the first one, but they couldn't get it to do that again.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? So
when the remote hit, it sounded like a thud.
Yeah, it was like boom,
like a brick.
Yeah, it sounded like a brick.
And we tried to fucking create it. We threw it again. It just sounded like click, light plastic.
Yeah, because it's plastic.
Light plastic.
Yeah, it just went like that. It just made that. But it sounded like a brick the first time. It just went boom, and it didn't bounce, which it usually would bounce because, like I said, it doesn't weigh hardly anything. So yeah, so I thought that was really interesting that he reported, and even though it was glass, it hit the floor and it didn't break. Now, several days after Renate's purse had disappeared, remember how I said the purse that had $125 in it disappeared? She was just standing there, and something brushed against her leg, and she looked down, and there it was. Now,
what was it?
Her purse.
Okay, purse. Sorry.
Her purse.
Yeah.
Now, there had originally been $125 in the purse. Now there was only $35 in the purse. Okay. But nothing else in the purse was different. You know what I mean? So that was the only thing. But it just kind of like showed up next to her leg one day. So, and it had been gone for more than a week, I believe. But it just appeared.
I wonder if they ever found the money.
No, I don't think they ever did. Yeah, I don't know what happened to it. Poltergeist took it.
Took it and hid it.
He's a fucking thief. That's what he is.
Can't spend it, so just hit it. Yeah. Cry inside the wall.
Yeah, the poltergeist's gonna go down to the 7-Eleven and buy some smokes and like some fucking Reese's peanut butter cups or something.
Fuck your money.
Yeah. So I think like a day or two after that happened, apparently Lena, the 61-year-old woman, had collapsed on the floor and needed help. So the neighbors called like an ambulance, you know what I mean, the police and stuff. Now, they get there, and they find her laying on the floor, and she seemed like she was only partly conscious, you know what I mean? Now, while the cops were there, though, and this is kind of interesting, too. I think you'll also find this interesting. While the cops were there, one of the cops, not all of them, one of the cops said that he saw the old woman pick up an ashtray and throw it across the room and push over a piano bench, like while she was laying on the ground.
All right.
One cop said he saw that. So since the cops told the other cops about that, they were like, oh, well, that's what's been causing this old lady, for whatever reason, is throwing shit around. So they arrested her.
Yeah.
Disorderly conduct. Now, Renate, her daughter, she was pissed off. She's like, look, my mom has not been doing this, and you guys need to take her to the hospital because she's a diabetic and she might be going into shock and, she probably needs medical attention or whatever. So the cops were like, okay, fine. So they took her to the hospital and they examined her and then they released her and then they took her to jail. Now, the next day, she was brought before a judge and the judge said, tell you what, we'll dismiss the disorderly conduct charges if you go back to Germany, because she was, from Germany, obviously. She's like, so within 10 days, you have to go back to Germany. Otherwise, you're going to go to trial or whatever. So Lena said she would, and so they let her go. Now, so here's the thing. I kind of feel like the cops at this point were like, oh, well, it was just this old lady doing this the whole time.
Couldn't have been.
However, like all the other witnesses, because like I said, it wasn't just, there was cops there, there was a psychologist, there was a parapsychologist, there was neighbors, there was like a couple of their friends and stuff like that had seen this stuff. And they're like, look, she couldn't have done all of that. Like, and even like a bunch of the other cops said there was shit going on when she wasn't even in the room.
Yeah, they said the same thing would happen at like, Enfield Poltergeist. I mean, there was obvious psychokinetic stuff going on. But then Janet, the focus, would do something like throw an object.
Yeah.
But then said she didn't throw it. Maybe she just didn't remember throwing it. the subconscious part of her mind who's using this psychokinesis is doing all this shit. And then maybe there's a little bit of spillover where she fucking throws it with a physical object, but it's another consciousness. In other words, kind of like a multiple personality type, slight disorder, which might be interpreted as possession. You're being possessed by an alternate ego temporarily. Which that makes sense because the possession case that fucking inspired The Exorcist was a poltergeist case.
Yeah.
Poltergeist phenomena appears to be possession sometimes. It's not, though. It's a psychic temper tantrum. And there's kind of like multiple facets of the personalities working on each other. In other words, the subconscious mind sometimes taking over conscious control of the body, or taking over control of the body sometimes. So who knows? Maybe, yeah, we saw all those shit flying in that house. Who knows? Maybe every now and then I did something and didn't remember it. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's possible. Like, I found the word "go" written on the wall, on the glass, in wax. That's we found it. How do you know I didn't do that and don't remember it?
Right.
Because it was an alternate part of your consciousness doing it. Because that'd be an efficient way of doing it. Because it'd be like you do shit sleepwalking.
True.
It's like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have an unconscious part of your unconscious part of your mind fucking moving your body around. Then you wake the person up and they're like, "Oh shit, how did I get here?"
Right.
Might have been things like that happening. Maybe that's what she was doing when she threw those objects. She was kind of like sleepwalking. She must have been the focus.
It's possible.
She must have been the focus.
Are you talking about this case now?
This old lady.
Yeah. Well, but we'll see if that was the thing. Because, like I said, that one cop said, "Oh, I thought I saw her throw some shit," which I don't know if he did or not. But so they're like, possible. So they're like, "Oh, well, that explains all of it." But like, pretty much all the other witnesses were like, "No, it couldn't have," because William Roll and Dr. Blumenthal, who had been staying in the house for several days at this point, they're like, "Look, we tried to preclude that possibility. Like, we kept her in sight the whole time. Like, while there was this one incident where in Lena's bedroom there was like this knocking noise coming out that was like this this picture she had over her bed that was like banging against the wall like that, and it's like we had her hands in our hands, like she was sitting right there, so she couldn't have been doing it. You know,
she may have done that, but the cops wanted to wash their hands of the case.
Yeah, they were probably just like
they were looking. Somebody wanted to be a hero. I solved the case.
Yeah,
that's part of it. But she may have thrown that stuff and done that in an alternate state of consciousness. Like sleep.
And sometimes, and we've talked about this too, and I think we talked about it in particular about the Enfield case, and you see this in poltergeist cases too, is that a lot of times, especially if it's an adolescent, there'll be all of this activity, and then all these people come to investigate the activity, and then nothing is really happening, and so then the focus adolescent gets caught throwing something. For example, like happened in the Enfield Poltergeist case. But that doesn't necessarily mean that all the other stuff before was them throwing it. I mean, it could mean that, but it doesn't necessarily mean that. It could just mean that, well, they feel bad because nothing's happening, so it's like they're trying to like stir up excitement or get the people to stay.
Another
or
thing
whatever.
I think it's called priming the pump.
That too.
You might be before an audience that is skeptical, which might add a bunch of pressure on the focus, even subconsciously. Pressure, performance anxiety. So the kid fakes something to lighten the mood. They go, "Oh, yeah, it did it." And then all of a sudden, now it's easy to do.
Right.
Then the phenomenon fucking starts up again.
Yeah, you got to psych yourself up.
Yeah, so it might be that. That could be that. Because I could see that. Because I did feel like when we were going to show it to somebody, in my case, there was like this performance anxiety, like, oh, it's going to make you look like a fool. It's not going to do anything. And it would hold back.
Right.
And then it would do something small. And to see, there it is. And then it would do something big.
Right.
It performed for somebody.
Yeah, because you had to
Kind of like greasing the wheels.
It's almost kind of like the poltergeist has performance anxiety.
It's like performance anxiety. Exactly. It's like PE. PA.
PA. Yeah, Ben said the charge was throwing shit around.
Shit around, yeah.
Said, seems pretty harsh. She would only get a fine, wouldn't she? Yeah, that's what I would think. Maybe they were just kind of threatening her because she's like, she's not like...
Wanted her to leave.
She's an immigrant. We don't want her here. I don't know. Danny Rowling said, what state does this take place in? This was Indiana. Indianapolis, Indiana. This was 1962. Now, kind of fueling the theory that Lena, the 61-year-old woman, was the focus of this, was that she did indeed go back to Germany, as she was supposed to. And when she went back to Germany on March 31st of 1962, I believe, the phenomena completely stopped. So it would seem that she was probably the one causing it. There have been some theories that maybe it was Renate, the 32-year-old, because her and her, the relationship she had with her mother was very ridden with conflict, I guess. It was very contentious. So it could be that she was causing it, but it does seem, in light of the fact that as soon as she left the house, or left the country, it stopped. I believe there were like a couple of other isolated incidents like here and there, but nothing like this whole like glass breaking, furniture moving shenanigans that happen. Like all of that stuff like completely stopped as soon as Lena Gamecki went back to Germany and moved out of the house. So it would seem that this 61-year-old woman was probably the focus of this poltergeist. Again, very, very unusual. But it could be, like, according to everything that I've read and, like, the stuff that we've talked about and everything like that, anytime that there's this kind of really contentious family relationship, I don't think necessarily it has to do with the person's age, even though obviously, when kids are going through puberty or stuff like that, it's this really tumultuous time. And then if you have family drama on top of it, then that's going to fuel the fire even more. But I mean, it could happen with an older person. Like, you weren't here, but as soon as that woman moved back to Germany, all the shit stopped. Yeah. Which would seem to indicate that she was probably the one.
Yeah. I don't think it has to be a young kid.
Yeah, it's not necessarily. It just usually is, but I don't think that's always the case. Right. I don't think that's always the case. And well, apparently,
shit, I could do it every now and then, but it's just not as good as it was.
Yeah.
Although if I believed I could get it was as good as it was, it could probably come back.
Yeah, I mean,
I just don't want it.
Yeah, because you don't really know.
I don't know what it's gonna do. Yeah.
I mean, I know you. I've known you for a long time, and your subconscious is a very scary place.
Yeah.
So it's like, and I don't know if you have complete control over it.
I don't think so.
So it's like, I might have to.
The dark side of the force.
That's what I mean. Yeah. So it's like I might have to like start wearing armor or something like that because you just like start pitching shit at me.
Probably Although, have anything to do with you.
No, probably not. Like you don't really seem to get like all that fucking.
Wouldn't have anything to do with you. It would do stuff for itself.
Right. Which is still like that's scary enough in itself.
Yeah, because I don't know what it wants.
Well, and that's what I mean. And I think even I think even the most insightful person doesn't know what kind of like fucking nefarious like thoughts you have down there sometimes. Because shit, I consider myself like a pretty insightful person. It's like every now and then like I'll have some kind of thought being like, what the fuck? Where did that come from? You know what I mean? So, and I think everybody has that. And also, you don't know how you're going to react in a certain situation too, like that you've never experienced. So I kind of feel like a lot of your own subconscious, a lot of your own consciousness is really not known to you. Yeah. Too, which is kind of frightening to think about. So, so if you had something that was reacting to that wasn't in your control, then there's all kind of like scary shit that could happen.
Yeah, looking back on it, it's like it was trying not to cross certain rivers. You know what I mean? Certain boundaries it didn't seem to cross. It never touched anybody in anger. It never really threatened anybody.
Well, that's good.
It never seemed to want to go out of its way to scare you away. It wanted you to watch what it could do more than anything else. You'd get scared because you don't know what the fuck this thing is and what it's doing. But it'd make happy faces and shit. And I guess it's just trying to say it's all good. But you could interpret that happy face as something sinister too. It's just something creepy because it appeared out of nowhere.
It is kind of
like, is it laughing at us? What is it doing?
Yeah, that could be interpreted lots of different ways. Right. It's not necessarily
happy
nice
because it's going to kill us. What's the problem? So, by then we knew it wasn't going to hurt us.
Yeah.
But
still,
it was just creepy.
But see, you don't know. You never know. Yeah. I mean, they don't usually.
It's an outside force, and you're not in control of it.
Right.
So you don't know what. It seemed to try to make friends, kind of, but then it would go off and do some other shit that would fucking make spooky,
Yeah.
It just wasn't real consistent.
I mean, the most violent thing that it did while we were, while I was experiencing it, was tearing that shit off the
counter,
off the cabinet,
yeah,
and breaking all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I wasn't home at that time. But you were like really mad about something. He wasn't mad at me. He was just mad about something else.
No, and it fucking sounded like fucking. A huge crash. It was instant. All of it at once. It wasn't like a process of this falling and that one falling and this. It was all of it at once. Bam. Yeah. 3 of them horses and pulled that molding down in whole. It was that piece of molding was probably about 5 feet long.
Yeah, about that.
And it would snap easily. And it was nailed in. But the nails had pulled out and it was on the ground intact.
Like somebody had wrenched it off.
Like the whole thing. Yeah, without breaking it.
Right. Yeah, it came off
just
in
nailed
one
it back
piece.
up. Yeah, it came off in one piece.
And then the nails were still sticking out like that.
And I couldn't do that by hand. Yank that thing off of there without breaking it.
Because it's flimsy. It's flimsy. It's just that little wooden, not even wood. It's like that fake.
And it came crashing down with everything else just in one stroke. Pow!
Yeah.
Like, how the fuck did that happen? And the nails weren't even straight. They were all fucking bent.
Yeah, they're all bent and sticking out.
Yeah.
Like, so like I said, somebody wrenched that. It looked like somebody wrenched it forcefully.
Uniformly. Without a uniform
like.
amount of fucking pressure on it. Without snapping it. It just was pulled it off. And it didn't pull it off and throw it down. It was just boom.
Yeah, it all just came down.
Boom.
And it came out.
Like
it didn't come down.
Not straight down.
If it went straight down, it would have gone onto the stovetop.
It was 5 or 6 feet out from where it was on the counter.
Yeah, like near that, like on the
island.
island.
Threw out in an arc, but faster than a fall. Bam.
Yeah.
All of it.
See, but that's
whatever had a hold of it the whole time.
Right. The point I'm making is that if it can do that, then, and you were not in control of that, you were just mad, and it did that when you turned your back, then it could do lots of different things. And like I said, that's kind of the same case here. It's like this was basically like fucking pitching big heavy crystal bowls around and shit like that. That could easily just like wing that at your head and kill you.
Yeah.
It doesn't usually. I don't think I've really heard of a case where anyone was killed by rocks falling from the ceiling or somebody pitching up, but that doesn't mean that it couldn't happen. You know what I'm saying?
Anytime it threw anything at me, it fucking was shot like that pin. It shot it at me like a fucking bullet, and it hit me. It sounded like it was fucking hard, clack. But I didn't feel it very much, and it went back into the room and bounced off my wrist, bam, like that, like a bullet.
Yeah,
but it was loud, but it was like it pulled the punch. It didn't hurt. Right. It was weird.
Yeah, maybe it just kind of wanted to be like, fuck with you. But no.
Whatever it had it the whole time. I could see it as a streak, underneath my field of vision. It went and went back into the room as I was shutting the door. Red was standing right behind me. We both jumped out of our skin. He says, "Did you see that?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I says, "That didn't happen." And he goes, "Yeah, it did." He says, No, that didn't happen. I went into denial.
Yeah. But I mean, this case in particular, it does seem like William Roll, the other psychologists that were there, stuff like that, really do seem to think that Lena, the 61-year-old woman, was the focus. Because it's like most of the shit happened when she was present or seemed to be focused around her somehow. And the fact that it all stopped when she left, like abruptly, would seem to suggest that she was probably the one at the center of it. So, again, very unusual for a 61-year-old woman to be the focus of poltergeist activity. But apparently the case here. So I think it's time for another drink, actually.
Yeah, Demigod says great show. He has to leave. You can watch it recorded.
Yeah, we'll be here for another little while because that was only the first case. But I think that was the longest one though.
Yeah.
So this one has always fascinated me, because this is not only kind of an unusual case of like he wasn't that much older. I think he was 19 or 20, like who they are pretty sure the focus was. But this was interesting because it took place at a workplace and not like in a house, which you don't usually. I know there's that one kind of famous, what was it? Rosenheim, or I can't remember what one it was, but that one with that girl that came to work at that office and like all the lights would swing behind her and shit like that. So that was a workplace one, but this was a workplace one that I think you don't hear as much about, and I think it's kind of interesting because it happened in Miami, right here in Miami, Florida. Well, we're not in Miami, Florida, but we're in Florida anyway. So this one happened in 1966, and I don't even know if this one has a name. So the Miami Poltergeist, the name of the company where it happened was called Tropication Arts. So I don't know if it's called that somewhere, but I usually just see it called the Miami Poltergeist. So this didn't last very long, as a lot of poltergeist outbreaks don't. But it was very destructive and very, very active, and there were a lot of witnesses to this one. And this was another case where shit just like started happening spontaneously. Like people had been working at this warehouse for like a really long time and nothing had happened, but then all of a sudden, ba-bam, like 1966, all of this kind of shit started happening. So like I said, this company was called Tropication Arts Incorporated. This was a wholesale company based out of Miami. And their whole thing was that, when you come to Florida and you go to like International Drive or something, and there's like all those cheesy tourist shops where they have like all those like ugly mugs and, alligator shit and stuff. Well, not alligator shit, but you know what I mean? Like shit with alligators on it. Stuff like that. That was what this company made. They made like mugs and beer steins and stuff like that had like Florida shit on it. You know what I mean? Like tourist shit.
Yeah, I think
like a gift shop.
I think that's actually made in Mexico, all that stuff in it.
Well, this wasn't. This was made. This was in Miami.
Okay, they made it right there.
So they made it right there.
Okay.
But yeah, they painted them there, and
all right.
So it was like this big warehouse. I don't know if it's still there or not. Probably not. So what happened? This was like the end of 1966 in December. Now, the first thing that happened was that people come into work and they find these. They had these like beer steins. They were made out of this amber glass.
Yeah, I remember those.
And the bunch of them were broken on the floor. Now, they didn't think anything about this. They're just kind of like, oh, well, maybe a box fell off a shelf or something like that. Like I said, that's what you would think. But then it started to seem like every day, like the employees would show up to this warehouse and there was always glass broken. Like, there'd be glass broken in the aisles, or like boxes would have fallen off and there was like just shit all over the floor. And they started to notice too that every time that something fell off a shelf or something was broken, it was always in an aisle where nobody was. You know what I mean? And it was usually from somewhere either where nobody was or that was from like too high up for anybody to reach. You know what I mean? Like you'd need a ladder to get up there. So it wasn't like somebody was just going wee and like going and like knocking shit off. You know what I mean? So it was that kind of thing.
And it's happening while they were in there working?
Sometimes, but then sometimes they would come in the morning and there would just be shit broken.
So they'd be working, they'd hear the glass break, or they just find
it? Sometimes.
All right.
So you got your warehouse manager, whose name was Alvin Laubheim, and the owner of the place, whose name was Glenn Lewis. Now, obviously, they didn't think anything paranormal was going on. They just thought, like, some of their workers were idiots, or were just dropping shit, or were breaking shit on purpose, just to be assholes. And all the workers said, no, man, like, we didn't touch it, seriously. But, they're losing a lot of money. They're losing a lot of stock because all of this stuff is broken, right? So as the next month goes on, the activity seems to increase, right? And at one point, the manager and the owner decide, well, this can't be the employees doing this, because there was just shit broken everywhere, and there was stuff that was like, it would happen when no one was in there, and like stuff would happen like over there when everyone was over here. You know what I mean? So it was that kind of shit. So like, well, there has to be something else going on. And sometimes some of the employees would even see stuff falling off the shelf. Like things would fall off the shelf, like one thing, two thing, three thing, like that, and like nobody was there.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So they would see that kind of shit.
Just bam, bam,
yeah,
bam, bam.
And I believe
from a distance. Huh?
I believe at least a dozen witnesses reported seeing shit just falling off, like in sequence, like off of the shelf.
Is it coming out in an arc? Did they give any details?
Well, we'll get into that like in a second.
Right.
So obviously the people that work in this warehouse are starting to flip out because they're like, oh my god, this shit is fucking haunted. What the hell is going on? Like, for real. Like, they thought it was like something bad was going on. So the manager calls the cops. And he actually told the cops, as far as I know, that he thought it was a ghost. And he's like, look, I know this sounds weird, but there's a ghost in here. He's breaking all my shit. So please come here and see what you can do about it. So they had a cop come out. His name was William Killiam. And he comes out and he's just like, oh my god, I can't believe I get this fucking detail. But he comes out and he saw some of the shit as well. Like, he saw some of the shit just falling. He's like, oh, that is fucking weird. So he calls a couple of other officers. Like, he's like, you guys gotta come see this shit. So a bunch of other officers come. And they also had the same thing where they'd all be standing over here. Nobody's over here in this part of the warehouse. And they hear a bunch of shit, like, just falling off the shelves. And then they go over there and it's like, all this shit's broken. So it seemed like, you know, much like you were saying earlier, like, shit doesn't happen when you're looking directly at it. It would always kind of be a thing where, you know, you'd be in this aisle, and in the next aisle over, you would hear all this shit smashing, and then you'd go over there and look, and then, like, something in this aisle you were just in would smash. Like, it would do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, because it can't. It's not trying to be clever.
Right.
I'm convinced that it can't alter the location of that object or add any kind of energy to it while you are consciously looking at it, because you are confirming its fucking location in space and time and what its status is. When you're not looking at it, it's potentially in a place. And whatever does this is in that same place where potential is. So it can only act on it when you're not looking at it, because that's where it is. That's where that force is. It's the only way I can describe it. That's what I feel it was.
I mean, that does make sense.
Yeah, it's on the same wavelength with it.
But yeah,
when you're not looking, when nobody's looking.
They said that was pretty common, that like shit would break in this and everybody would run over to see what it was, and then shit would break in the aisle that you were just in. They said that would happen all the time. Now, interestingly, there were two witnesses, two employees at this place, and they said that they actually did see a couple of items before it fell. They said that the thing on the shelf would vibrate and bounce a little bit up and down, and then it would lift up and fall out like that.
Yeah.
They said they saw that.
They saw
right.
I wonder if they actually saw the whole process, or were their eyes dancing around, were they blinking? I don't know.
But that's what two people reported seeing that. So they said it would kind of like vibrate like that.
I saw that plastic shot glass fall through all those shelves and hit the bottom and go for a second. And I was looking at it while I was going. Maybe there's just certain kind of motion it can do while you're looking at it, but then there's other things it can't do.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's just harder when you're looking at it. I don't know. But it seems to prefer it when you're not looking at it.
Yeah, because like I said, it seems like most of the time you see stuff when it's already in motion. Which happens here, like it would happen like the next aisle over. Like,
but then you got to ask yourself, you're confirming where it is when you're looking at it. But you can't see the backside of it, of that object. Maybe the backside of that object, its location is not confirmed, because you can't see that side of it.
Right.
It can, though. So it moves the back side of the object. The front side is just connected to it. Maybe it's something like that.
Yeah,
I don't fucking know.
I don't know either.
I don't know how quantum physics works. If anybody tells you how quantum physics works, they're lying.
Well, even physicists will tell you
They will tell you that, because they don't know how it works.
So, like, we're not really sure either.
Yeah.
And we're experts in this shit.
Yeah. They're still trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
The universe is not...
It's weird. It's counterintuitive.
Three-dimensional space is not what it appears to be. That's really what he gets down. Space-time is not what it appears to be. Time may not be all that real. That's another thing. So there's a lot of problems. We're just perceiving a world through senses. And that's not the way the world really is.
I mean, we just have like a little meat computer up here.
Yeah.
We're not really equipped
to really understand what reality
to deal
is.
with, like, we can only understand like just what we needed to do.
Yeah.
Which isn't all that complicated.
The father of physics that got 99% of it figured out was fucking Isaac Newton. We mostly live in the Newtonian world. There's real simple shit, like gravity and fucking how things bounce and how things move. When you start talking about Einsteinian stuff and fucking quantum physics and fucking dilation of space-time, really advanced concepts, we don't really live in that world. We're not traveling close to the speed of light. All that's imaginational exercises that turn out to be real.
Yeah.
We know it because of satellites. You got to adjust their clocks. A moving satellite, its clock is not running the same as yours.
No.
Clocks, there is no universal clock to say what time it is for everywhere. Everybody's got their own clock depending on how fast they're moving.
Relativity, bitches.
Right. Now here's another thing. You're in a piece of space and your clock is running one at the rate you think is normal. But on the other side of the universe, and the universe is expanding, a place at the edge of the visible universe is now accelerating away from you at near the speed of light. So that clock is not running the same as your clock.
Nope.
All right? Even though that guy's clock, he seems to be normal and your clock isn't running right. Because more space is being added, it's bubbling up, and things are being pushed apart. They're not traveling through space, just more space is being added.
Yeah.
In between all this
which, like I said, is weird. It's counterintuitive.
You're just being drug along it. It's like being on the surface of balloons blowing up.
Because that's not our day-to-day experience.
It's not your day-to-day experience.
But like I said, our day-to-day experience is, to a large degree, dictated by our little meat computers, which are awesome and complex, but not complex enough to really...
That guy at the edge of the universe that's moving away from you near the speed of light, if you were to see him through a telescope, it's not possible. But if you were to see him as a telescope, he's moving real slow. Like his clock is moving, and then he would just fade away. Yeah. Like, where'd that fucker go?
You should teach physics classes. Yeah, people would learn it good.
He vanished away.
Where'd that fucker go?
Where'd that fucker go? He would probably be frozen, and you'd probably see him for billions of years not moving. Yeah. And then it would probably just fade away eventually as the photons stopped arriving. Right. You know? But
yeah, that's what would happen.
Yeah, the photons would stop arriving. And he'd be long gone, and that dude slipped away into another fucking version of space-time because the space that he's occupying is moving away from you faster than the speed of light. Yeah. Even though he's not moving the speed of light. That just more distance is being added in between those 2 points. It's bubbling up. Expansion of the universe. Well, fucking time on your end and his end is totally different. Yeah. They're not. You're like in a new universe, or compared to each other. Yeah, we're not, crazy. Though. It's crazy. You're in the same. We just don't. We are not accurately perceiving space and time and energy and matter.
Because, like I said, we don't know enough about. Needed to. Right. It wasn't really germane to our day-to-day.
It didn't have anything to do with running down deer and killing antelopes
and that's
making
where we
furs,
came
and making
from.
Clothes. That's what we come from.
Right. And I mean, to be honest, I'm kind of like an optimist in that way because I'm like, look, our human brains were built for that, but look at all the shit we figured out. I'm like, that's pretty good.
Yeah, and then you
look at pretty good.
You look at a wasp. From the point of view of a wasp, its universe is totally different because it's just seen it through senses that are nothing like ours. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that always kind of freaks me out too.
Yeah,
like
they'll never
like birds and insects and stuff like that. They see different, visual spectrums and
their experience, their senses are different.
Sure,
their sense of hearing, I don't think they have it.
It's not right. It's like vibrational hearing. Yeah, and they, like I said, their vision is completely different.
Yeah, I think they're seeing ultraviolet.
Yeah, they see in a different spectrum. And the way they fly around, like the speeds they fly around and stuff like that, probably alters their perception somewhat.
They're like them fucking xenomorphs, man. They think it's totally normal to impregnate a fucking paralyzed creature, and you're young, just live in it and eat it. And then it comes out fully formed. Comes out fully formed, yeah.
Whereas humans be horrified.
Yeah, and it comes out knowing everything it needs to know. Hey, what's up? I've just been born. Let's go to work. that kind of universe stuff.
Man, I wish human babies were like that.
You all ready to go to work? Yeah.
The baby would just pop out and it could already feed itself and get a job and everything. That'd be fucking awesome. Yeah. Fucking humans. We're pathetic now. Yeah. I mean, that's the whole reason, like, our brains are so complicated that it takes a long time for us to get up to speed.
And they're all pretty much exactly the same. They're like clones of each other.
Yeah, like, not babies, like human, not human babies.
We're talking about wasps.
Insects and stuff.
They're all clones, yeah.
Yeah. Although I suspect that they might be, well, like bees and shit, like, I think are smarter than we give them credit for. Yeah. I'm just going to say that right now. I think all animals are probably smarter than we give them credit for. We got to get back to the case, Jim. Yeah, no kidding.
We're running out of time.
We're not running out of time. Okay. It's only 9 o'clock. We're fine. Like I said, the first case was the longest. Like, we can just, you know what I mean. Okay, so all of this stuff is happening at this warehouse. So this paranormal investigator named Susie Smith, she's the first one to show up. And she would come there like every day, like every weekday, and like stay there all day and log all of the weird shit that was happening. So she logged like hundreds and hundreds of incidents. And then good old William Roll, again, he showed up for this one too. He also brought J. Gaither Pratt with him, also a parapsychologist. So they came in late January of 1967, and they just very quickly honed in on this one area. They said most of the stuff that gets thrown or broken or whatever is in this one particular area of the warehouse. All that was there, it was like a couple of desks, like some shelves. There was like 3 shelves like that, and then one like along the back wall. They also said that almost all of the objects that were thrown or broken were either those glass beer steins, like the amber glass, or they had like these highball glasses that had a zombie on them. So those were, like, other shit was thrown around too, but that was like the overwhelming majority were those 2 things for whatever reason. Now, the other thing that they noticed, getting back to the actual topic of the show, was that whenever shit happened, it was always when this one worker was there. Now, this was a 19-year-old young man named Julio Vasquez.
I remember this case.
He was, he was Cuban.
Yep.
And he was a shipping clerk. And pretty much everything that happened was when he was in the area. Yeah. Like, shit did never happen when he was off work. Like, it was always when he was there, and always when he was close by. And whenever he was in a bad mood, the stuff would be, like, a lot more intense. Like, it would happen a lot more. And like I said, when he wasn't at work, like, nothing would happen. Now, William Roll and Dr. Pratt were there for 10 days, I believe. And they concluded that Julio was probably the focus, and that he was causing the shit through RSPK, obviously. Now, one thing that was kind of interesting...
It'd be funny if they docked his pay. Okay, you owe us.
You're breaking all this shit. Yeah, right? I mean, yeah. Now, one thing that was kind of interesting about this particular case, too, was that sometimes the poltergeist, the entity, whatever you want to call it, would actually do stuff that the parapsychologist, like, asked it to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Ours responded to requests.
Yeah. Like, this also did that.
Yeah.
Like, so what William Roll would do was he would take some of the, like, highly breakable stuff. Like, I'm sure the manager was, like, pissing his pants in this movie, like, oh my god, you're breaking all our stuff. But it's just like, you know, the poltergeist was already breaking it, so what are you gonna do? And he's like, so he would take the stuff and then he would move it to, like, one part on the shelf where, you know, a bunch of stuff had broken before. And then he's just kind of like, hey, break that stuff or move that stuff or whatever. And almost always it would do it.
Yeah, so would ours.
Yeah. So it was pretty much so he's like, yeah, it was very responsive, like, to requests. Now, one thing, he wanted to see if Julio was doing this, if he was just the focus or if he was, like, doing it, like, consciously or physically, right? So he's like, so he takes one of the zombie glasses, he puts it on a shelf behind, like, several feet behind where Julio was working. And then he just, like, kept an eye on him, like, from behind the fucking shelf or whatever. So Julio at the time, he was working, so he had a clipboard in one hand, and then he had, like, some kind of alligator thing, like, in the other, like, a toy or a mug or something, in the other hand. So he wasn't looking back there. He didn't know what was going on, nothing like that. He was kind of crouched down, and, you know, there was stuff in both of his hands. And still, the glass behind him just went shoop and crashed on the floor. And William Roll said, I was looking at him the entire time. He did not turn around. He did not touch that glass. He didn't do anything. It was like 4 or 5 feet behind him. You know, and he didn't do anything that would suggest that he was, like, faking it. So yeah, nobody had been there. It just did it by itself. Now, another thing that William Roll decided to do, he took this whole box full of the beer mugs. Again, the manager is just like, oh my god, no. But yeah, so he takes a whole box of beer mugs and he puts it he goes to like one of the most active areas, and he puts it on this shipping desk, like puts it on top of a desk, like almost kind of like baiting the fucking poltergeist into like, yeah, break all this shit. And you know, it just obviously the poltergeist took the whole box, picked it up off the table, and went onto the floor. All of the mugs didn't break, but 3 of them did. Julio was in the area, but he was 5 or 6 feet away from the desk and had his back toward it. So obviously he hadn't done anything, but he was there. The only other person that was in the warehouse at the time that happened was way on the other side of the room. So obviously it did it by itself.
The phenomena is fast.
Yeah.
It also has dexterity. It can stack objects. It can make shapes that make sense. It evidently can either teleport matter or make it penetrate matter. Like, you know, things come from somewhere. I guess it came through the wall. I don't know. Or like I said, that one glass came out of that hat, through that hat, and hit that cop in the back. Yeah. Which means that matter doesn't mean much to it. Matter's mostly empty space anyway.
True.
So either it moves it into a higher dimension, or it just grabs hold of it somehow and just moves it right through another object, none of the atoms even hit. But this is what I want to know. It can break these glasses. Can it put one back together?
It never seems to do that, though.
No.
I guess because it's much easier to like destroy something than to create something.
But I wonder what would happen if you challenged it. So I wanted you to put that broken mug back together. I wonder if it
like it was.
I wonder if it would try. Or would it try to fool you and just take it away and put a new one there?
Put a new one there. That would probably be easier.
Yeah.
Just like buying somebody a new thing if you broke something in their house.
It would probably take the old one away, the broken pieces away, and put a new one there. Yeah. And try to fool you. That's what I predict.
Because all the energy that it would take. I mean, it takes much less energy to just like break something than put it back together the way it was.
But it had a dexterity.
Right.
It might be able to fuse things back together. I don't know. It can make matter penetrate through other matter. Can it rejoin 2 pieces that have been broken? I'd start with something easy like a glass rod. See if it could get it to fix.
Yeah, there was just like 2 pieces.
Just 2 pieces to put together. Yeah. See if it would try, because it would fulfill requests if it could do it. The only thing it threw a tantrum was we asked it to write.
It did not want to do that.
No, it just threw the pen.
Just threw the pen at him.
Yeah, it didn't want to give up.
You, I'm not writing.
It didn't want to give any information.
Because you asked what its name was, right?
Yeah, all kind of how old it was, stuff like that. It didn't want to give any information. It just wanted to demonstrate what it could do.
Right.
And keep you occupied, keep you watching it.
Yeah, so remember how I said the witnesses earlier said that they had seen like some of the stuff on the shelves and they thought it would like vibrate and like lift up a little bit?
Yeah.
So the parapsychologist wanted to check and see if this was the case. And also they wanted to make sure that shit wasn't just like sliding off the shelf, just like falling off. So they're like, what they did was they took some of the glasses, that were, very commonly broken, and they would push them back, and then they would put notebooks in front like that were only like that high. And then and then they sat and watched them. Now, interestingly, some of the objects that they had pushed way back and put notebooks in front of still ended up broken. So obviously they were lifting up a little bit because the notebooks were still there.
Yeah.
But the shit behind them had come out and broken. So obviously they were lifting up at least 2 inches.
Okay.
Before they came out and broke on the floor. Right?
Yeah.
So yeah. Now, these 2 parapsychologists, they said they logged about 13 incidents where they had put a target item in a spot and watched it until it jumped off the shelf on its own. 13 incidents of that. They
were actively looking at it?
They were actively looking at it when it did it.
All right.
And they were also watching everybody that was at work. And, obviously nobody was near the shit. Now, when they did try, and this is very common too, and this is, again, why, like, a lot of skeptics say is, like, why don't you take a picture of it? They did say that they try to take picture and video and stuff like that, but when they would turn the cameras on, nothing would happen.
Yeah, that sounds typical.
Right. So
you could never catch it in the act.
Yeah.
It was too fast and unpredictable.
And yeah, I mean,
and these
like,
are the cameras back then.
Right. Yeah. This was
a
1967.
Yeah, big ass expensive cameras. And
right.
It was expensive to record anything. A cell phone of today would be a lot handier. And I could have never caught anything that's happened recently with a cell phone. It's just
because you're not ready.
You're not ready for it. You're not even thinking about it.
You're not expecting. It just does shit when you're not thinking about it.
For the same reason why girls don't catch serial killers that kill them on their cell phones. They weren't expecting it. You know?
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like, who the fuck thinks it's like, oh, I should take a picture of this motherfucker?
Right. Well, they're even... Poltergeist is even faster than that. Right. And more unpredictable than that. You'll never catch it. Even if you know that it's going on. We had a Polaroid camera at Mammoth. We could only capture the aftermath. We could never catch anything in motion.
Yeah, so it's like when you see the photos, you're like, well, why did they take a picture of that?
Yeah.
But they were taking a picture of it because...
That was all we could catch.
That was all
what
it did.
Of what it did. They're in the book. The pictures are in the book. Now, not in Poltergeist.
Yeah. But it's just... Yeah, and Polaroid camera, like, you used to be... What, it used to be like 10...
Yeah, they were almost like $1 a photo.
Yeah. They were expensive. Yeah, it wasn't cheap.
Yeah, you know,
it was 10 or 12, like, in one packet that you stuck in.
And I think we only had one packet of them things.
Yeah, and they just took pictures of like, oh, look, it's a rocking chair.
Rocking chair upside down.
It's a bed with like towels on it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They took pictures of that. Yeah. Because that's why. You know what I mean?
That's all.
If you just saw them out of context, you'd be like, why the fuck would you take a picture of that stuff? But yeah.
It was things that it did.
Yeah. But that's the thing. But yeah, so apparently this whole entire time that the parapsychologists were there, they logged about 150 incidents that they personally witnessed of just random objects moving, right? That they couldn't explain. Now, they couldn't find any evidence that anyone was doing it. They couldn't find any natural explanation, earthquake or anything like that. So they figured that, like I said, probably RSPK. Or, poltergeist, but it was Julio.
Recurrent spontaneous psychokinesis.
Yes.
It recurs over and over again. It's spontaneous. You can't plan for it. It's psychokinesis. Somehow the mind moved it. Don't know how. It's a subconscious mind. I wasn't consciously able to do it. I could consciously astral project, though. But it was better if I didn't expect that, too. But that was a lot later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
William Roll also noticed something very interesting, which maybe you want to weigh in on. He said that Julio Vasquez, who was the focus, they thought, the items that fell from the shelves or flew from the shelves, but were the farthest away from where he was at the time, traveled the farthest, but objects that were close to him when they fell didn't move that far. So he thought... well, this was his theory anyway, that Julio had what he called a psi field, PSI field.
Yeah.
And he's like, maybe this field, like, kind of goes in a circular motion around the person. And so, like, if it's close by, like, it just kind of goes like that. But if it's far away, it's, like, goes farther. I don't know. Like, I don't know, like, all the logistics of it.
Stuart Hameroff.
But that's kind of what he was thinking.
Stuart Hameroff, his explanation would be called... quantum soul theory. And it's that your brain is a bunch of neurons, but wrapped around it, entangled with each other, are a bunch of quantum particles that are in superposition and in quantum entanglement with each other. And that is kind of like a soul. It's conscious. It gives you that feeling of being. It gives you a point of view. If you take anesthesia, it deadens all the microtubules inside the brain that cause that. And after that, you will be unconscious, even though you're awake and talking, like I was talking to Jenny when she came out of fucking anesthesia. I was talking to her for a half hour. She didn't remember any of it. She was unconscious. Because her quantum field had been shut down. Or somehow, maybe not shut down, but disconnected from the brain. So it's slightly like an out-of-body experience. Then when the anesthesia wears off, she goes back. I've been through it myself. It's an anesthesia through surgeries. I don't remember it either. Okay.
What did I say?
Just talk about normal stuff. Just normal stuff.
That's cool.
Talking about surgery, and she was getting implants. She's like, I'm talking about her boobs. Oh, they're big, you know.
Funny, you know? See, I don't remember that at all.
Yeah. They look good.
Like I said, the first thing I remember, I remember waking up in the room for a second.
Yeah.
But then the next thing I remember was you helping me to the car.
Yeah.
And then the next thing I remember was me being back at your house in bed and you bringing me a sandwich.
Yeah.
That's the next thing I remember.
Yeah, you didn't remember, but you talked the whole time.
That's hilarious.
And
kind of creepy.
So, the psi field that he's talking about, there's a more modern description of it. Quantum soul theory, or it's a cloud of nanoparticles. They're fucking little subatomic down particles, quantum particles, and they're slightly outside of space-time too. Okay, and they're all entangled with quantum entanglement with each other. So theoretically, if the body and the brain dies, that field will still be entangled. So you'll still have a point of view, which that checks out with out-of-body experiences that I've had. You don't remember a whole lot about yourself or the memories that you had. You can access them if you want to, but you're mostly a point of view. You can see or experience. But you're not really who you were. You're more childlike, I guess you could say. But you can access any information anywhere at any time just by wanting it. And then you can get that information. But then as soon as you don't need the information anymore, it's gone. It's like it's not recorded. Because there's no brain to record it.
Right.
You're about the size of a ping pong ball, and you can see in every direction at once, and in any spectrum you want to see in. You can hear or not hear, or you can change everything and see quantum particles or subatomic particles, or you can actually just say fuck it and wink out and go into kind of like what some people would call astral worlds, which are like other dimensions of vibration. There's no way I can describe it. And then there's a thing like a pleroma, which is a place, it's just a big white ball of singing. And you see that thing and you know that if you go in there, you never come out. Or at least not as you are. It's a sea of consciousness. It's the place where all consciousness goes. It's where all the creatures that can experience come from that. It's like an ocean of consciousness, like a quantum, or like a universal consciousness. If you go in there, you're recycled. As soon as I saw it, I was like, oh, I knew what that was. It's like going home. You want to go, but then you know. But if I go in there, I can't come back out.
Right.
Not as I am, or who it. It'll be because you're basically dissolving into an ocean. So your version of identity is kind of erased, and it's traded with other people's identities. But they're little primitive identities. No, they're just point of views. Your point of view merges with everybody else's.
Yeah.
The Greeks called it the pleroma, the place where the gods come from.
Yeah, I get it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's all part of that same version of reality. Poltergeist is related to all this.
Yeah.
Quantum consciousness and the afterlife. Jenny did not believe in an afterlife, but I've seen it. It's not an afterlife in the way of like you survived death. It's where you came from.
Yeah. I mean, like, I'm open to it, but I just,
Right.
I've never seen anything like you've seen, so.
Yeah. Your personality and who you are now is just a role that you chose to take, because when you selected this life, you already knew the destiny, you knew the story. It's like you paid admission to see that movie.
Man.
It's like that. Because
I chose to be a broke-ass goth chick?
Yeah.
Shit. Why did I choose that?
Yeah, well, you choose to live so you can experience.
Okay.
Because you can't experience in the pleroma or in the spiritual worlds, really. It's kind of stagnant. You get bored after a while. Because it's like being in the internet. It's too, what's a good way to put it? It's too interactive. You're going to get exactly what you want. You'll go everywhere you want. So it's not fun because there's no limitations.
Right, I got you.
You know what I'm talking about?
Although I think in my next life I would like to choose to be a billionaire.
And it's outside of space-time. So there's no progress. It's a singularity. You know what I'm talking about?
Right.
It's outside of space and time. It's a singularity. So when you're over there, your purpose isn't being fulfilled. It's stagnant. I guess is a good way. So you choose to do things.
Okay.
But they're kind of fun. Even the suffering is supposed to be fun. And then you go back, and then you can erase yourself. Right. Seemingly, I guess. Seemed like it.
Maybe I chose this because I knew I'd meet you, Tom.
Could be. Probably not. Probably not. Though.
And I knew that you would entertain me for years and years on end.
It's done. It's done for. It's not as important reason as you really think.
I'm just teasing.
It's because there isn't much else to do.
Yeah, well.
You know what I mean? You can be birds or animals or insects or aliens or whatever.
I'd like to be a kitty.
You can be anything you want. You can be alien.
That would be cool too.
Alien souls. Or you can just live over there and not be reincarnated, I guess. But every time you do this, kind of like your past personalities were just a role that you played, they're kind of erased. You don't remember them. You don't need to. It's like you don't remember all the video games you played.
Yeah, that's true. Karen Lee says, cool show tonight.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, yeah.
Did a whole show on that. It was called Out of Body Experiences on this channel.
It was a while, yeah.
A long time
it was
about,
a while back.
I tell all the fucking near-death experiences that I had out of body experiences.
Yeah, he had some weird shit happen.
And it's all related to poltergeist. It's the same phenomenon. It's just a different aspect of it.
DVD Dragon says, I would be a Subway sandwich.
Yeah. Well,
one of the new ones with like where they have like the actual meat slicer now.
Everything that exists in the material world has a consciousness, but it only has the consciousness of what it is. Like a rock has the consciousness of a rock, which isn't much.
Not the rock, a rock.
Just a rock. So and that which isn't much. Okay. So everything is kind of conscious in a certain way. Just there's not conscious in the way that a human is, or some kind of otherworldly being, maybe I would call them like an angelic kind of being. That's a good term for it. But there were things out there that seemingly had never lived in this dimension. They just lived over there.
Yeah. All right, so let me get back to this so we're not here all night.
Let me go to the restroom.
Okay. Okay. So another thing that they did in this warehouse was Julio's fiance's dad, whose name was Jose Diaz. He was also something of a medium, or at least he called himself that. So he actually had a good idea. He said, I'm going to bring in some kind of similar items to the stuff that gets broken all the time, like the beer signs and stuff, except I'm going to bring in ones that are like similar to that but are not breakable, and I'm going to put them in the same area and see what happens. So he did that, but turns out that the poltergeist instead just broke shit somewhere else that was breakable and just left that stuff where it was. So, poltergeist was smarter than he was, apparently. Also, they brought in a skeptic, which I'm always kind of a fan of in these situations. And this is good because the skeptic that they brought in was a magician, Howard Brooks. I always am a big advocate, because I liked James Randi and all that kind of stuff. If you're going to have somebody investigate a haunting or a poltergeist act, please, or if you're doing a parapsychological study of someone with like PK or something like that, please bring in a magician, because they know all the fucking tricks, like how to fake stuff, and they've caught a lot of people doing what they thought was like pretty clever tricks. But you're not gonna fool a magician, because they know all that stuff. So they bring in this magician, Howard Brooks. Now he comes in and he just thinks, well, obviously this is all fake. Somebody is faking this. So he came in and he actually saw a couple of not heavy, but they were like 4 pounds each, like boxes. And he saw them like move across the table and slide off, like nobody pushed it. And he saw a couple of other things, and later he apparently had to admit, it's like, yeah, well, if somebody's faking it, I don't know how they're doing it. Like, I can't figure it out. So there was that. Now, at this point, because they thought Julio was the focus, William Roll sent him for some psychological tests and like personality assessments and stuff like that. Now, probably not too surprisingly, it was found that Julio really did not like his job and really did not like his boss, and was just a very angry person in general, and very unhappy. And he kind of seemed like They asked him at one point, they're like, do you think that you are unconsciously causing all of these phenomena? He seemed offended by this question, but he did admit that all of this stuff breaking everywhere kind of made him happy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Thought it was awesome.
Yeah, he thought it was kind of awesome that like all this stuff was breaking, because he really, really hated this job.
Before I forget, if you're listening to this show recorded, if you're enjoying the show, please make sure to do us a favor and give us a, what do they call it? A super thanks.
A like or a comment or a super thanks. Anything will be good.
Every now and then we get a super thanks.
Every now and then.
Yeah.
So they asked him all these questions, and they also found out that his personal life was also something of a mess. He lived with his stepmother. She was like, you need to get the fuck out of the house. So she was trying to kick him out, and he was going to be homeless. And he was actually suicidal. He was having like really bad nightmares, shit like that. And they noted that a lot of his feelings like this that he had reported started about 10 days prior to the paranormal activity starting at the warehouse. Also, on January 30th, which was probably about, I think it was like a month and a half after the phenomenon had started, there was a break-in at the warehouse overnight. Some petty cash was taken and a few other things. And they immediately suspected Julio. And when they questioned him, he did confess to doing that. The manager didn't press charges, but they did fire him. Now, the police sergeant that investigated the crime said to the manager, allegedly, that Julio admitted that he had been causing the paranormal activity, that he'd been throwing stuff around himself. That he had tied thread around stuff and was like pulling it off of the shelves and everything like that. But the cops didn't find any thread, and the parapsychologists that were there didn't find any thread. The magician that was there, they didn't really find any evidence that that was the case.
That tells me that he didn't believe the phenomenon was real.
Maybe not.
Maybe not. That would help him do it more, because you got to believe it's an outside force.
Right.
He thought it was all bullshit. I did that shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did it with thread.
It could possibly be that, because he seemed kind of like a messed up person.
Yeah,
like a little bit.
Yeah, and he's trying to take credit for it subconsciously, because his subconscious knows that he did do it. Yeah. But consciously, he thinks he's lying. He's trying to say, "Yeah, I hurt you."
Yeah.
But he thinks he's lying. He isn't. He's telling the truth. He did it. But he didn't do it with thread.
Right.
So I see what he did.
I mean, fucking how committed to this chicanery would you have to be to like tie thread around like hundreds of different items?
People would see you.
Exactly.
People would see you.
That's what I mean. They observed things happening like hundreds of times.
Yeah. People would see him
without
he didn't do that.
Him doing anything.
He didn't do it with thread.
No.
He didn't know that he was behind it. He was just trying to take credit for it.
Now, some people that have like said that they had telekinesis and like were in a laboratory have used thread because they've caught them.
Yeah, easy to catch.
So it is a very common thing that they do. But nobody seemed to have seen that going on. And like I said, that would seem like, considering the magnitude of the manifestations in this case, that would have taken somebody a really long time to pull that off. You'd have to be real committed. And I just don't see like some 19-year-old pissed off guy having the wherewithal to tie thread around a bunch of stuff and like pull it up. Like, why would you do that? I don't know. You'd have to be a crazy person. So they did fire him. Now, interestingly, after they fired him, which was February of 1967, all of the paranormal disturbances stopped immediately, which just goes to show. Now, after he got fired from Tropication Arts, he got arrested because he was stealing an engagement ring for his pregnant girlfriend.
So he was under a lot of stress.
From a jewelry store.
So she was pregnant.
Yeah, his girlfriend was pregnant.
So he's worried about that, yeah.
Right. He got 6 months, so, they didn't give
Locked him up 6 months.
They were kind of easy on him, I guess, but for the theft.
Yeah.
Now, I will say the parapsychologists, Dr. Roll and Dr. Pratt, they heard about what happened to him, and they raised money for a grant because they wanted him to undergo tests, like PK tests and ESP tests and stuff like that, to see if maybe he had some kind of like gift or something.
He would have done good.
Right. He didn't want to do it though.
Okay.
He didn't want to be. He said he didn't want to be their guinea pig.
Yeah, he's an asshole.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how he's doing.
I mean,
it.
he was 19 or 20 at this point, so you know what I mean. Like
Yeah.
young guys that age are always kind of like that.
Yeah, he would have guessed a lot of stuff right. He'd had good instincts about what people were thinking, and you know, like if they were doing the cards thing, I would have done well on that test probably back then.
Yeah, probably.
Would have been real well. Yeah, above. I would have done above random, at least. When I was in full blown fucking poltergeist mode at like fucking 13, I probably would have fucking been real impressive. Probably would have only been for a certain amount of time though, for like a couple weeks, when all that was happening. But I would have had to think that the ghost was telling me to do it.
Yeah.
That the ghost showed me, that kind of thing. Tony showed me things. That's what he's talking about.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you would have had a little finger like that.
Yeah.
Talking to Mrs. Torrance. Yeah.
Which that's where all that came from. The Shining came from that.
Well, yeah.
Stephen King reading about this.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, that was very big in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
Like, I read a bunch of books about that.
Yeah, he's not doing anything fucking
Yeah, he's not making anything up.
He's reading fucking what parapsychologists are saying.
Yeah, because, like, I read a lot of those books, too. So that's where he's getting ideas. That's where
deny it and put
fiction
it on,
writers get ideas from that.
To deny it and put it on something else makes it a lot easier. That might go back a long time ago. Maybe some of those witches were real. Maybe some of them were just psychics.
Yeah,
and the whole idea and they thought that their familiars were talking to them. And it was actually something more like poltergeist.
Possibly.
And the information they were getting through their familiars was the same thing like Tony.
Yeah.
Or the poltergeist. It's something else that's doing it. And then they see that once or twice in the medieval era, and it freaks them out so bad, the church says, we got to hunt these things down and destroy them. And then a whole industry pops up around it. I could see that happening.
Yeah.
Because they believed it. But what was weird is that every now and then some of the reports that they gave, if the reports are real, you can't tell if it's might be a modern report dressed up to look like an old report that they put in.
Yeah,
it's called an interpolation.
Sure.
They might be interpolating, putting shit in the records that aren't old. It's new, but it's made to look old. There may be some of that in there. But some of the old cases that I heard sound like poltergeist, but they were saying it was witches.
Right. Well, that's how they would have interpreted it in the context of the time.
Yeah. If that really happened. Or if it was a modern person put that in the record saying, yeah, poltergeist, witches, that's what they're talking about.
Zach says, so what Tom is saying is that he has a tiny man who lives in his mouth. That's hot.
Look at this shit.
I had no idea
Tom
was into vor.
Zach. Bad motherfucker, you.
And then he goes down to his stomach.
Yeah.
You know what? Like, the first time I saw The Shining when I was a kid, like, I don't know why that freaked me out so much, but that... When Danny says it's like he's the little man that lives in my mouth, that fucking freaked me the fuck out.
He goes down my stomach. He's not talking.
Yeah. Well, where is he? Why can't I see him?
He goes down.
He goes down my stomach.
He hides. Yeah.
He hides.
Yeah.
That little kid was so good in that movie.
He's talking about his subconscious.
Yeah.
Self and its psychic ability.
That was another.
If you guys didn't read the book, Tony was Danny. It was an older Danny. It was an older version of Danny that was helping him.
Which they made very clear in the
book.
Well, in the book and in the shitty miniseries.
Yeah, the shitty miniseries, yeah.
The shitty miniseries, they made it very clear because because Tony came to him like as a floating teenager.
Floating teenager with glasses.
With glasses that was talking to him, and I'm like, that is so lame. It was just so much better in the Stanley Kubrick version where he was just like...
He would see him floating and he'd be pointing.
That was so much creepier.
He'd see him floating and he'd be pointing at the clock or pointing at dates and fucking trying to show him stuff, and he couldn't understand all of it.
Yeah. It's just, well, like I said, and I think I've pointed this out before, this is the reason that I really did not like I love the book, don't get me wrong. I really did not like the miniseries version, which was 97? The miniseries version of The Shining that Stephen King did. Because it was too literal. It was exactly like the book.
Yeah.
And shit that works in the book's amazing.
Yeah.
Shit that works in the book doesn't work in a movie.
No.
Much better to go the Stanley Kubrick route and make everything like ambiguous and only the way you would see it if you were there. And like you don't have any context for it. Much scarier.
If you want to know what the book says and you don't want to see the book, though, just see the TV series.
Because it's pretty much exactly
what was in the book.
But like I said, it doesn't
play as well.
It doesn't work as well. Those are two completely different mediums.
Yeah.
And you really can't. translate that to. That's why, I mean, man, the Stanley Kubrick version is so much better. It's just so much more ambiguous and it's so much scarier.
But King didn't invent any of that shit.
No, of course not.
Parapsychologists thought about these concepts and were trying to piece it together way back into the 60s.
Sure.
And the whole inner denial and making the poltergeist and psychic phenomenons an outside agent that's doing this, and it's not you, it's something else, it's a ghost, or it's something, or it's a familiar that's sent by demons or Satan or shit like that. That's all fucking basically what King was talking about with fucking Tony, which is the subconscious mind's kind of like in a super ego. It knows more than you because the subconscious mind isn't limited in the same way. But it also doesn't have all the same things your waking consciousness has, but it's in a way more powerful, and it can face the truth a lot better than your conscious mind. Your conscious mind is mostly a defensive mechanism more than anything else, to make you feel better about what's going on. Your subconscious knows the truth, and it has better spatial awareness, and it has more accurate judgment of other people, and it has access to information that the conscious mind shouldn't have. I think it's some kind of quantum consciousness, the consciousness that's encoded in the universe throughout space-time. So you might have some access to feelings and knowledge about the past in a certain area you're in, or if you wanted to know something, you might be able to access remote knowledge. Your subconscious might. Through transcendental meditation, you can do it in a meditative state and get visions, which is like that. But, King's take in the book is, I say, pretty accurate, because he's just copying what parapsychologists thought.
Yeah.
Tony was just daddy, older, trying to explain to him the danger of what was going to happen at the hotel.
Like I said, but
he could see the future.
I'm glad that they left that ambiguous in the.
Because he had access to the future, he knew it was coming.
Creepier.
Which, animals are like that too. I believe that they can do it. We see it as instinct, but animals might have premonitions of the future, feelings. They're shown things of what might happen, but I don't think they're consciously aware of what's doing it.
No,
it's just feeling. Not. It's just feelings. It's not a highly evolved, advanced feature that a person can do. It's primitive, which I think that wigs people out. Poltergeist feels, and those abilities feel primitive to me, not advanced.
Yeah. All right, so where was I? So Julio didn't want to be tested, at least at first. He married his girlfriend, and they had a baby. They had a baby girl. Now, Julio went on and worked at a bunch of other kind of shitty jobs, and reportedly the manifestations followed him to some of those workplaces.
Yeah.
But I don't think to the same level or same intensity. A month after his daughter was born, Julio was working at a gas station, and there was a robbery, and he was shot 3 times.
Damn.
He lived, even though one of the bullets severed his aorta, but they were actually able to fix it.
Damn.
The shitty thing about it, though, was that he was so injured that he couldn't really work much afterward, and I guess he didn't get much disability, so he fell into poverty, at which point he went back to Roland. He went back to the parapsychologist and said, okay, I'll do the parapsychic, because they were going to pay him, right?
Yeah, but now he's not in good shape.
He went back to that.
Yeah.
Now, they gave him some psychokinesis tests, and he did very well on those.
He did, okay.
But the ESP tests, no, he didn't.
Okay.
They said no better than chance.
Okay.
Now, he actually told them that he could control the psychokinesis, but they didn't see any evidence of that. But he did actually score high in the test. So there was that. So I don't really know. It seems like I don't know what happened to him after that. When I wrote the book, he was still living in the Miami area, as far as I know, but I don't know what's happened to him since then. Because
how old would he be now?
Well, he was only 19. He was 19 in 1966.
Okay, so he's old.
Yeah, so he would be like an older guy now.
Yeah,
so I don't really
70s.
know like what happened. It kind of seemed like he kind of was on track to have kind of a shitty life, which sucks.
Now you see, these dudes didn't get a hold of him when he was in good shape. You know what I mean? He'd been shot. And and now all of a sudden he's more aware of what it is that they're trying to get out of him, which kind of taints his abilities. You want him in his like raw, unadulterated form where he doesn't really know even what they're looking for. That's what you want. So he wouldn't have been as good. He wouldn't have been a good test subject at that stage. He'd have been much better before he got shot.
Yeah, I mean, he just came in there out of desperation.
Because your physical injuries are going to affect the mind.
Yeah, and apparently he was so messed up that he couldn't work anymore. So
right, which is not going to put you in the right state. Mental state has a lot to do with it. Jenny knows. I go into a certain mental state, it's more likely to happen.
Yeah.
But I'm not in that state now. And
You're
it takes
pretty
months.
Chill, yeah.
It takes months to slowly work into it. It's not as good as it was, but it takes months. It's not something you could do like in Star Wars where you're being attacked and you just point at an object and throw it like fucking Darth Maul did. Damn, I wish you could. But no.
Wouldn't that be awesome? Although I would probably get in so much trouble.
Yeah.
I'd be flinging shit at every motherfucker.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah, you pissed me off. Pa-pow.
Yeah. The thing is, though, is that my will is not superior to the will of somebody else. So if there's an observer, they might be able to stop it. You know what I mean? Their fucking mental disbelief of it could stop it.
Right.
That's why these guys prime the pump sometimes and fake something to make it easier.
Yeah.
So if you're in mortal combat with somebody, that's totally physical. All those damn psychic abilities go out the window. All that psychic stuff happens because you can't get physical. You can't get physical.
Right.
You're not in that situation. So it's trying to do it through other means, surreptitiously.
Yeah.
The military was into it. They were trying to fucking figure out remote viewing, and they got fucking results. Project Stargate got results about remote viewing, but they found out satellites are better. Satellites and spies are much better.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Any kind of like human paranormal ability, even if they could prove it, it's just not reliable enough. You couldn't depend on the intelligence that you got from that because it's, humans are just very...
Especially in a life and death pinch.
Right.
You're under attack. That situation's calling for physical force, not some kind of damn psychic ability that's subtle. It's not. It's
kind of like nebulous. You don't really know. Right. You don't know if it's right. It's like kind of vague. It's like it's not really. Yeah. I'm not saying that some people don't have it. It's just that it's not super useful in situations like that.
Going into some kind of astral state to go look and see what kind of submarine the Soviets are building, you might get some pretty good ideas. You might be able to see some of it, but you wouldn't be able to prove it.
Right.
All right. What's a lot better is to just have some hot chick go down and go screw some of those dudes who are building that ship, and they'll tell her everything. That's called a sex operative.
And take some fucking pictures.
That's the ultimate fucking. The ultimate weapon is a female sex operative. That's what most of them damn spies are, because these dudes fucking they can't keep it in their pants.
Because dudes are dumb and they'll tell you anything.
They can't fucking keep it in their pants. And
give
they start screwing some chick.
Anything.
He starts bragging and just fucking blabbing his whole. I don't tell anybody, but I'm working on a secret submarine.
Oh, I totally won't tell anybody.
Yeah. That's all kinds of stupid shit,
See, that's where that legend comes from. Yeah. That dudes think with their dicks.
Yeah.
They do kind of. Well, I don't know if thinking is the word that I want to use. I don't think it's thinking that's going on with the dicks. They're not thinking. It just kind of turns their brain off. Not older dudes. Older dudes are usually like wise to that kind of shit. But younger dudes, man, you can get them to do all kinds of shit.
I lost a lot of respect for the U.S. Army when I was active. When a friend of mine, I saw him and I said, "Man, where you been? Where's your girlfriend?" He goes, "Dude, that wasn't my girlfriend." He goes, "What?" He goes, "She was a CID agent. She lived with me for fucking a year. I was sleeping with that girl, fucking, and she was investigating me because she thought the Army thought I was running a marijuana selling ring." And I says, "That was a fucking agent?" She goes, "Yeah, it's a CID agent."
Can you imagine?
And I was thinking to myself, that chick's in the Army. Her parents are fucking proud as hell of her, right? Her job is to fuck suspected drug dealers.
Yeah. I would not
and
want
I lost,
that,
oh, my girl, she's so great. Fucking, she was cute.
Yeah,
I thought she was a civilian.
I would not.
She wasn't a civilian. She was an Army agent. And he wasn't guilty. He was guilty of like real little shit. They just kicked him out. They didn't even send him to prison or anything. Little weed stuff. You know?
Which, like, why?
But
is
he
that
wasn't
then?
selling a big.
Right.
He was a buyer. He wasn't a fucking.
Right.
He wasn't living on post. He was living off post. He wasn't doing it while he was working. When he was off. But no, when I found out that the Army did that shit, they had fucking 22-year-old girls in there, fucking drug dealers, or suspected
like to
drug
get
dealers,
like info
to
on
get
them.
information on them.
Right.
I was like, man, they're doing that to people's daughters. You know,
Yeah, it's like who would want that job?
Somebody's daughter. And I don't know what that girl's rank was. She might have been a commissioned officer. I don't know. She probably not. Old
Yeah, and I'm
enough.
sure she didn't fucking sign up for that. I'm sure they were probably like, "Hey, you're doing this now," and she's like, "Okay, do I have a choice?" No.
Yeah.
So you know, not great on either end,
No.
is it? I'm sure she probably didn't want to do that either.
I don't know. Maybe she did.
Maybe, I don't know.
Maybe she was accused of something and they leveraged her into it.
Yeah, maybe they
You're
said,
gonna
"Hey,
do this or you're gonna go
or
to
you're
jail."
gonna get in trouble."
Right.
Well, like I said, that's not really a choice either, is it?
Yeah.
That's kind of forcing you into it.
Yeah. I lost a lot of respect for the Army during that time.
Well, I will tell you right now that I do not work for the CIA.
Yeah. You're not watching me, right?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not watching you.
Don't tell on me.
I'd have gotten bored a long time
All right.
ago, Tom. We've been
Yeah.
together a long time.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm always around. I'm not doing anything sneaky.
Yeah, I was
nefarious.
I was talking to my buddy Eric about that, you know, because he knew the dude too. And he's like, "Yeah, that's fucked up." And he was
That
the one
is
that brought
pretty
up the dad thing. He's like, "Imagine that. Her dad's proud as hell of her, and he doesn't know anything about what she does. She's a whore for the Army, basically."
Yeah.
She was, they're probably sending her to all kinds of suspected ass drug dens. She's in the middle of fucking gangbangs and shit. I was like, yeah.
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah, and they're probably paying her.
Because you gotta like fucking go along with it.
Yeah.
Or
I don't know if she was a commissioned officer or what.
that's messed up.
And she was doing drugs. She was. Cause
Well, like I said, you kind of have to because it's like they're gonna catch you.
She was
otherwise.
smoking weed with him.
Right. Like the same thing with like undercover cops and shit
Yeah.
like that. You have to do that stuff.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they're gonna be like, "Oh, you're
Yeah.
an undercover cop," and then they're gonna shoot you in the face.
So I just, you know, I just fucking started to think of them as fucking scum. You know.
Like I said,
ain't down with that.
Like I said, that's shitty on both of them.
Yeah.
Like the fact
Yeah.
that she
Fucking scum.
was probably leveraged into doing that, and the
Yeah.
fact that he was just, and he wasn't
Yeah.
even doing anything that.
Any of these intel agencies, fucking CID, that's the Army version of the FBI or the CIA. Okay, CID, FBI, CIA. Any intelligence agents from any company, any country, scum. Basically a criminal outfit.
Well, I mean, they have to be, like
Yeah.
I said, because they're kind of.
Yeah, nasty.
I mean,
That's what we were doing.
You know, I was like, people could argue that it's a necessary evil, but I don't
think it's
really,
necessary.
I don't really know if it is. Though.
It's not necessary. It didn't matter if that dude. They thought that dude was selling weed. It doesn't
Yeah, it's
matter.
like it's different if it was
Yeah.
like somebody that was a fucking serial killer
Yeah.
or somebody that was like a fucking
Yeah.
sex trafficker
Right.
or something like that. Somebody that's just
Right.
like growing some weed. Who fucking cares?
You're gonna send these girls at these
Right.
suspected drug
Like,
dealers.
why would you do that?
Yeah. Go
That's
bait them in with
awful.
your pussy and fucking do all that and have all these dudes and fuck all of them that you can and fuck. What kind of woman is gonna go along with this shit unless she's levered into it?
That's what I mean.
And I was
It's
like, man,
I
the
kind of
Army
feel
I
like no
served
one
was
would really
levering
choose
women
that.
into that bitch, or maybe they just pick them like, oh yeah, she's a natural hoe. We're gonna put her, and then all of a sudden, and then it
hoe.
dawns on you. Wait a minute, hold on. You got commissioned officers in the United States saying this chick here, 21, is a natural whore. Let's use her. That's another thing that's like,
I mean,
where's
that-
the fucking morality?
Honestly,
in this?
that would not surprise me. At all.
Yeah,
It's like, hey, we could use her to.
we
like,
could use
fuck-
this whore
right.
and find out all this shit that
Right.
these dudes are doing.
Meanwhile, 20
Yeah.
years later, she's.
But
in
no,
fucking
she
therapy.
fucking went up there and did her little testimony against him, and they got him kicked out of the Army, and fucking he's up there, and it wasn't even her name. She didn't even look at him, and he lived with her for about a year.
That's crazy.
Slept with her and everything, and he didn't even know she was military. Thought she was a civilian.
Right, that's crazy.
She was a hippie chick. That was her fucking cover.
Yeah. See, that blows my mind that like that must be really hard on people that have to do like undercover shit like that.
Yeah.
I could never do anything like
They never
that.
just said her name because they didn't want her name. They didn't want him to know her name. The court knew her name. He didn't know her name.
Because I'm just
She was under protection.
I'm just like such an open person.
Yeah.
Like to the point of TMI sometimes.
Yeah.
So it's just like I have a hard time like pretending to be
Yeah.
something else. You know what I mean? I'm not good at deception. I'm not good at anything like that. I just never saw the point of it. You know?
Yeah.
I see these people that like lie about stuff all the time. It's like that just seems like work.
Yeah.
You have to construct all of
We got to
these
get back.
fucking-
We got to get back to the case.
Yeah, I know.
We haven't even talked about Donnie Decker yet.
Well, Don Decker is the next thing we're going to talk about. It's Don Decker, and then it's 2 short ones.
Okay.
Okay, so you think you can handle
Let me
that?
go to the restroom.
I might need another drink, though.
Okay.
So, like, while you're gone. Do you want me to start, or do you want me to wait?
Go ahead and fill some time.
Yeah, I mean, you know about this case, kind of. So we're going to talk about Don Decker, otherwise known as the Rain Man, the Stroudsburg Rain Man, or the Rain Boy. I've heard that, too, even though he wasn't a boy when this really happened. But yeah. So this is a pretty famous case. It first happened in 1983. I didn't actually hear about it until about 10 years later. It was on Unsolved Mysteries, and I remember it made like kind of a big impression on me. And he was actually on there, like being interviewed. So this was a kind of a strange case of, there's not a lot of these, but there are some, of poltergeist cases that were like water manifestations. Like I said, I wrote a book with Steve Mara, who's a British parapsychologist, and he did a case that happened in Rochdale, Manchester, and where they had rain inside the house. And this was kind of similar, but Don Decker is unusual because allegedly he learned to control it at some point. Although I don't know what's happened to him since he got out of jail, which we'll talk about later. But he could apparently control it for a little while, but I don't think he can do it anymore. You know what I mean? Because the circumstances that it started manifesting in were unusual, you know. So it's late winter, 1983. Don Decker, who was 21 years old at the time, he was in county jail. It was kind of a minor charge. It was just like receiving stolen property, something like that. So he was on, it was 4 to 12 month sentence. Now, February 24th, they gave him a furlough because his grandfather had died and he was going to go to the funeral. His grandfather's name was James Kishaw, I think is how you pronounce his last name. Now, so Decker goes to the funeral, and by his own account, and he said this on Unsolved Mysteries, he wasn't really expecting to have the kind of emotions that he had at the funeral. But when he gets there, he just this whole like torrent of emotions like takes over. He wasn't sad about his grandfather dying, but allegedly his grandfather had abused him since he was 7 years old, and he had never told anyone else in his family about it. So him showing up at this funeral, seeing his grandfather dead, like lying in the coffin, seeing all his family, and like thinking about it, like it's like ruminating on it, sort of like broke open something in his mind, apparently. That's kind of how...
Yeah, there's sad over a dude and honoring a dude who's dead that was abusing him. He's like, his subconscious like, nah, that dude's a fucking monster.
Yeah, fuck that dude.
Fuck that dude. What are you honoring that dude for? So, yeah.
Yeah, I can see how you would... And like I said, he was 21 at the time, which is still pretty young. So I can imagine... And having kept it secret all of that time...
Yeah.
Would have really been... That would have really fucked you up as well. Now, Don Decker and his mom were not speaking at this point. So he couldn't stay at her house, like, over the furlough. So he stayed with, like, friends of the family, whose names were Bob and Jean Kiefer, like, over the few days that he was home for the funeral.
Yeah, they kind of adopted him. He was in prison at the time. Didn't they release him?
Yeah. Receiving stolen property. Yeah. So they gave him a few days furlough. Yeah, to go to the funeral.
Yeah.
So these friends of the family, they thought he was a good guy. You know, he just, fell in with a bad crowd or whatever. But he was like fundamentally a good person. So they were a lot nicer to him apparently than his real family were. So he went and stayed with them. Hi, Pookie. So he went and stayed with them like over the funeral. So he goes to the house. They all kind of chill out that night, and he's sitting on the couch in the living room, and he said that he started feeling what he called a deep chill, and then he sort of went into like a little bit of a trance, kind of. Now, according to the Kiefers, they said that they looked over and they saw Don sitting like real rigid on the sofa, and he just had this like blank look, and it's like he wasn't in there, like, you know what I mean? And then they noticed that the room went really, really cold, and then water started dripping down the walls and like out of the ceiling a little bit. Like it started like drizzling in the house, essentially. So at this point, as you would, they thought that maybe a pipe had burst or something like that. Bob apparently was pretty familiar with the layout, like, of the plumbing in the house, and he's like, the water was kind of showing up in places where there weren't any pipes behind the walls. He was pretty much 100% sure. But he decides, well, you know, just to cover all the bases, I'm going to call the landlord, whose name was Ron, and have him come over and have him have a look-see and see what's going on. So Ron shows up, and he's kind of looking around, and he's just as confused as everyone else is. They said at this point, the rain inside the house was falling quite heavily, and was also starting to ooze up through the floor. Don was sitting there on the couch, and he was just kind of still in this trance. He
zoning out, yeah.
Yeah, he was kind of zoning out. He would have like sometimes come out of it, but he just kind of seemed.
Well, that's kind of the way I was when that thing flew.
Right. Yeah.
I was like, what happened?
Yeah, he was like, what? Where? Yeah, like that. So that's kind of what he was like. So they didn't know what to do. So Ron and the Kiefers, who were living in the house, they call the cops. So 2 cops show up. They come in. And they get rained on inside the house. I mean, they both reported. They walked in and it was just... whoosh, and they were both soaked. They also both reported that they saw droplets of this water, like just kind of hovering in midair and moving horizontally.
Floating.
Yeah. And one of the cops said that it freaked him out so much that he said he just felt all the hairs on his neck standing up.
Yeah,
so they knew that it wasn't, like, normal.
Paranormal shit.
Yeah, they knew it was paranormal. And then they noticed Don sitting there, like, in a trance or whatever.
Zoning out.
And they said, well, why don't you take him out of the house for a bit, and we're going to stay here and see if we can figure out what's going on. So Ron, who was the landlord, he's like, well, I'll stay in the house with the cops. You guys go someplace else. So the Kiefers take Don to this pizza place.
Yeah.
Which is owned by this woman whose name was Pam Scrofano. And when they walk into the pizza place, they said, okay, so 2 things happen, like they figured this out later. At the house, Ron and the cops said that the cold in the house and the rain, like, stopped the second that Don left the house.
As soon as he left, it stopped, yeah.
But in the pizza restaurant, it started in there.
Okay.
Like water started coming down from the ceiling and like puddling up on the floor, like as soon as Don came in and sat down. So
he brought it with him wherever
right,
he went.
That's what the lady at the restaurant said.
Yeah. Okay, now I got some questions. I don't know if they have in there. The water at the house, how much of it was pooled up on the ground when it was over? Did they actually say?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay, like was the carpet swimming in it, or was it just damp?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm
the
assuming
reenactments show it was wet.
Right.
Like it had been raining in there.
I mean,
like
all of the reports that I saw, they said it was like it was raining in the house.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming it wasn't like a flood or nothing.
Yeah.
But it was probably like the carpet was like kind of saturated.
Yeah.
That's kind of the impression that I got.
And I guess
from
the water dries up
talking.
normally. It doesn't vanish. It dries up normally.
Right.
It seeps away over time. So that means there's water damage after this.
Although, interestingly, in the Rochdale case, which is kind of similar to this, that happened in England, they reported that it's like the rain would come down from the ceiling, and then when it would stop, it would just kind of go, and it would just kind of like dry back up.
Dry back up, yeah.
Like back into the ceiling. Like, now, it was super weird.
I remember I've seen these police, the cops that were in the house, I've seen interviews with them.
They were freaked out.
Yeah, the cop said that after it happened, they had to go back to work. They left. He said that fucking bothered him for a long, long time. He couldn't stop thinking about that. He said it was eerie, very eerie. He said
I can
said
imagine.
He knew it wasn't normal. And I think they also said that the water wasn't quite normal. The water was a little bit sticky, a little thicker. Man,
Steve said that in Rochdale too.
Did he?
They said the water was a little bit
thicker.
Weird.
I wish they would have gotten some sample of that and have that analyzed. That water was being pulled out of the fucking nothing. he's making water molecules somehow using psychokinesis.
Which is crazy.
It makes me wonder, because of the texture, maybe it wasn't really all water. Maybe some of it was water, some of it was heavy water. Which is, to a dude who's just making water using psychokinesis, he doesn't know much about fucking atoms, hydrogen atoms. So he makes
one of these.
He just starts making a bunch of shit that's kind of like hydrogen atoms.
Right.
One of them would be heavy water. That's what you use in like nuclear
Right.
plants. And I think it is a little heavier. It's got an extra. What is it? It's got extra electrons on it,
or something. I
something
can't
like
remember.
That. More protons and neutrons.
I'm too drunk
I
to
don't
remember that stuff right
might
now.
be more protons and neutrons. And there might be a bunch of impurities in it. I'd like to get like a scientific analysis of it to see how accurately he was making water.
Yeah.
Maybe he was making water very inaccurately.
It's water-ish.
It's water-like substance. Yeah, that's weird.
Zach
It was
says
probably a compound of a bunch of stuff. Water, heavy water, other things that are more like oil. But they evidently they didn't separate. I'd like to see what it was. It may have not actually been all water. Weird.
Zach says I'm surprised they never made the Decker case into a movie because I think it'd be awesome and creepy.
Yeah, it'd make an awesome movie.
It probably would. He said, I think the Poltergeist case that freaked me out most from your book was the one about the flamethrowers coming through the power sockets in Chicago. I think that was Chicago.
Yeah.
Yeah, like all the flames would come in. And I think that was pretty short-lived, too. But it's like, that was kind of the main manifestation, was just like fire coming out of the fucking sockets.
I remember that one.
These water ones freak me out, though.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and plug the book. Jenny wrote a book, and if you like these cases, that book, how many cases in that book? Hundreds, right?
Yeah, a couple hundred.
And she tracked all hundreds of these cases down and gives them all in a book called Unseen Hand. The Unseen Hand. And it's you can find it on Amazon. Jenny Ashford.
Yep.
Amazon. Unseen Hand. And it's also available on audiobook.
Yeah, I did an audiobook.
You can listen to Jenny. She'll read the whole book to you.
Yeah.
She got a nice soothing voice.
Not like now.
Not like now.
Not like me.
Rawr.
Bring me a scotch.
Now you sound like a duck. Quack, quack, quack.
I do not.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, in a way, we were talking about this the other day.
Yeah.
I said I kind of like the old broad, you know what I mean? Like whatever happened to Baby Jane kind of voice.
Yeah.
Bring Mom a cigarette.
A lot of people see Jen, some of the old shows we first started don't realize that Jen was in her 40s then. She looks like a kid. And she sounds like a kid, but she was in her 40s then.
Yeah, I think, when we met, I think I was 38.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I was 38 years old when I met you.
I think I was like 41.
Yeah.
41.
Zach says, I think a deeper voice suits your look more, Jenny.
Yeah.
Okay. Like I said, I'm not that bothered about it. It's just kind of funny. We were watching a video earlier with she's kind of like a bodybuilder. She's not like a big bodybuilder. She's like a fitness model.
Yeah, fitness model. Yeah.
That Tom follows.
Yeah, Bakar Nabiva.
And she has I don't know. It's like the same sounding voice as me or slightly deeper.
Deeper.
And it's weird how shitty dudes are in the comments, like saying, "Ooh, is that a man?" She does not look like a man by any stretch of the imagination.
No, she's fucking smoking hot.
Yeah,
smoking hot.
She's
built.
really feminine looking.
Yeah, and she acts real feminine.
And I don't think her voice is that masculine sounding either. So it's like, well, I think dudes are just like intimidated and they're just like making shitty little comments.
Well, they know they can't get her.
Yeah.
Her boyfriend.
So then, I didn't want her anyway because she looks like a man, but even though she doesn't, and she doesn't sound like a man either.
No, I've seen photographs of at least the dude she was dating back then, who's that dude weighed 230 pounds of fucking pure muscle. I mean, when she's standing next to him, she looks all woman because that dude is fucking Superman. All right.
I think she's beautiful. Actually.
Yeah, so those dudes fucking can't get it, and they gotta hate on her, and she's in better shape than them.
Well, yeah, that's why they're hating on her.
Yeah, they're just hating on her. She doesn't have big arms or anything. She's got nice arms, fucking nice, slender, ripped, and big muscle booty and thighs. That's her whole fucking calling card. She's got a fucking super muscular booty.
But that's why, Tom always tries to make me feel better by going, look at this girl. She has like a deeper voice than you have. And
there's lots of them.
Like I said, it doesn't bother me that
They're
much.
all
but
on
people
gear.
have commented on it.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm not that bothered. I'm too old to give a fuck what anybody thinks about me at this point.
And those girls are all on gear, and they're all porn stars or actresses or fitness models. All those girls are on gear. If anybody tells you that Only a few of them I think are natural, but in general, if those girls fucking shredded and they got fucking 6-packs and shit, they're on gear. They're on gear. A woman really can't. A woman beyond the age of 15 or 16 can't maintain that. They're just the androgens aren't there. I don't even think a 15-year-old could get a real 6-pack. I don't think so. They got a lot of hormones in them, but probably not enough to get that lean and to build that much muscle. Those little gymnast girls in the Olympics that do all that fucking bounce and see those legs, they're on gear. They got that little girl on gear. They're just not on gear when they're at the Olympics. When they're training, them bitches are on prima bowling.
All right, can we get back to the shit now so we can like finish the stuff up? Okay. I don't want you to go off on a whole.
Yeah, I'm going off on that shit.
On that whole thing, because you'll talk all night about that.
Yeah.
All right. So so where were we? So he's at the pizza place. Now the lady that runs the pizza place, she was freaking out because she thought he was possessed or some shit. So she had a crucifix, like you do, and she pushed it on him, and Don said it was burning him. So like very Exorcist at this point. So the Kiefers are like, okay, well, we need to get you out of here. So they got him out of the pizza place. Hopefully they paid. After they left, all the phenomena in the pizza place stopped, obviously. So they go back to the house, the Kiefers' house. The cops are still there. Ron's still there. Ron's wife has showed up. Her name is Romaine, like the lettuce, but not spelled the same. As soon as Don comes back to the house, it starts raining in there again. And then everybody starts hearing, like, all the pots and pans and shit in the kitchen, like, rattling together. And at this point, Ron, the landlord, he goes up to Don and he's like, what are you doing? Because he thought it was a prank. You know what I mean? He thought, like, Don was fucking with them. So he's like, look, you're causing damage to my property, so knock it off. But apparently what happened after this was that everybody that was there, which was included 2 police officers, they said that Don levitated a couple inches off the ground and then was thrown back against the wall. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like he just went pow, like against the wall like that. Like a bunch of people saw that, they said.
Yeah, I think that woman saw that.
Which woman?
The woman that was taking care of, was it his mom? It was his mom, or was it the girl, the woman he was staying with?
No, the couple that he was staying with were there. The landlord and his wife were there, and 2 cops were there.
Yeah.
And they apparently all saw this. They saw him levitate and be thrown against the wall, like with obviously nobody there. Now, so the 2 of the cops that had been there, they left for a little while, and then they brought the police chief back, because like I said, you got to see this shit probably. Now, the police chief comes. He gets rained on when he comes in the house, just, because shit coming out of the ceiling. And he said that he saw a weird mist that was like hovering in the living room.
Yeah.
Now he told the 2 officers, don't file a report because this is just a plumbing problem. Yeah, he said. I think he was in denial, probably.
Yeah. He just wanted it to be that.
And and the officers said that too. They thought that he was just in denial because he was just like, well, I don't know what this is, so I'm just like trying to like put it in a box.
What are you gonna say? Yeah, you're not gonna enter that in a record. People wouldn't believe it.
Right.
That's what he came up with. The mist. He saw the weird mist. That must have been where the psychokinesis was condensing the water, or a part of it. Weird. Wish I were to see it.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. Cool ability. Now, when he got thrown, Donnie kept seeing. In the interviews, he says he keeps seeing the face of an old man laughing at him, and the old man has a crown. And I take it it's his grandfather.
Yeah, because he said he went up to the bathroom like after the funeral in the Kiefer's house, and like he saw the old man's face like reflected in the window or the mirror or something, like with a crown on.
And he started getting scratches on his forearms.
Yeah, that's right.
Crowns. And in the interviews, he never says it's his grandfather, but it's implied that the old man is his grandfather.
Or a representation of his grandfather at some point. Because it does seem like there was some kind of like problem there. It's just what caused all of this.
Yeah. You
know what I mean? So the other 2 cops were like, okay, well, obviously the chief just doesn't want this to be paranormal, like just by what he's seeing. So they did leave. But then the next day, they were just kind of like, we got to figure out what the fuck is going on with this. So they got 2 of their other 2 other cops. They're like, come on, you have to come see this. So they got 2 more. And then they went back to the house, even though the chief told them not to. But they're like, we're going to do it anyway because we got to see what the fuck's going on. So there are 4 cops in the house now. Now, by the time they get to the house, this is the next day, there's still some phenomena going on, but it's kind of like lessened somewhat. Now, there wasn't any weird rain on that day, but there were a couple of other weird things. Apparently, one of them handed Don, because they had heard about the pizza place incident with the crucifix, so one of them handed him a crucifix, and apparently it burned his hand. And then when he took it back, it wasn't like hot or anything, you know what I mean? So it was, like I said, very exorcisty. Also, that day, they said they saw another levitation incident.
Of him?
Yeah, Don got picked up a couple inches off the floor and then thrown backward, like I said, again. So 4 of them said they saw it. One of them said, and this is a quote, it was as though a bus had hit him.
Yeah. And
also said that they saw, like, claw marks, like 3 claw marks, like, on his neck, like, while that was happening. And all 4 of the cops apparently saw this and couldn't come up with any explanation for that. So the landlord, at this point, after he saw a bunch of this stuff, like I said, at first he thought Don was just, like, playing a prank or something like that, but after he saw some more stuff, he started to feel sorry for Don and decided he was going to try and, like, help him out. So he starts calling around to see if he can get an exorcism going.
This is why he's still on furlough, right?
Yeah, because this was only like I don't remember how many days. It was like several days that he was on furlough. I think it was like over a long weekend or something. So they can't really get a Catholic priest in there, but they finally get some preacher to come in, and he's like, yeah, I'll come in and do like an exorcism-y kind of thing. So they come in there, and he does all the prayers and everything like that. Now, during this exorcism light or whatever, Don starts convulsing, but apparently, as the prayers started getting more, like, he stopped doing that.
So they just got some church people to come over.
They got some church people to come over. And this apparently, like, it had been kind of raining and cold in the house, like, the whole time. But as the prayers went on, it started, like, getting less and less. So, and then Don starts to slowly return to his normal self. Like I said, this is going in a very exorcist kind of direction.
Well, like I said before, poltergeist sometimes looks like possession.
Yeah, right.
But it's a subconscious mind attacking him.
Yeah.
He must have had a lot of inner guilt. He thought he could have stopped it, but he probably couldn't have stopped the abuse.
Well, yeah, and I feel like that's pretty common, especially with children that have suffered abuse by a family member. They always kind of feel like it's their fault somehow.
Could have been that he's also regretting not have told.
That too.
Because I don't think the rest of the family knew.
No, he said he didn't tell anybody.
Yeah.
And it had been going on for years and years.
Yeah.
Like since he was 7 years old.
Right.
So, and like I said, again, that's very common. And that's really shitty because kids kids are the center of their own universe. So anything that happens to them, they're going to think that they're to blame somehow. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's really hard. Well, kids, like, their parents get divorced, and it's like, oh, it was something I did. You know what I mean? And obviously it wasn't.
And he didn't say his granddad was mean to him, so maybe he felt like he was complicit.
Right, that too. Yeah. And like I said, that's very common.
Yeah.
That's very common with kids that are that are victims of abuse like that. But yeah. So everything seemed fine until Don's furlough was over. So he had to go back to jail. He was in the county jail to do the rest of the sentence. And so when he's in jail, I guess he's kind of bored, and he's like, maybe I can actually, like, control this shit. So he decided to try and do that.
This is the only guy I've ever heard of that I believed that said he could actually at will control the phenomena. I wasn't able to do it.
Yeah, and I
can call it on, but once it's on, it does what it wants to do. Right. It'll respond to requests, but it's always stupid shit. Move this over there, that kind of stuff. Yeah. And that was back when I was a kid. It didn't respond to anything last time it was around.
Yeah, it just did what it wanted, like, when you weren't thinking about it.
Yeah, just at the drop of a hat. You're just like, you'd be forgetting about it and it'd do it. It's done it in here, but it's very minor.
Yeah, and it's nothing it's nothing intentional.
No. It's like a side effect.
Yeah, like when you're thinking about something else. Right. Shit like that.
Yeah.
So he decides. So he sits in his jail cell, and he's like, "I'm gonna concentrate on the shit." And evidently, kind of like rain started dripping from the ceiling of the cell, like kind of running down the walls and stuff. So a guard's walking by and sees water on the floor. And so he thought that Don was just like throwing water around like from the sink or the toilet or whatever. And Don's like, no, I can actually make it rain, like with my mind. And the guard is like, yeah, sure you can. Okay. Yeah, prove it. Why don't you make it rain in the warden's office? Like if you can do that. So Don's like, okay, I will. So he apparently closes his eyes. The guard walks down the hall and sticks his head into the of the warden, who I think was not like the main warden, but he was just like the temp guy that was in there. And the warden's sitting at his desk, and there was like a water patch like right on his, and he hadn't noticed it, but it had come down from the ceiling apparently and like soaked the front of his shirt. So the guard was like, oh, well, the guy down there said he could make it rain in your office. And it did, apparently, because it's right there.
He said, I got him.
Your friend, yeah, the front of your shirt's all wet.
Donnie was like, I got him.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah.
He told him he got him first.
Right.
He says, no. He goes, I could hit him with some water.
Yeah.
He didn't say to make it rain in there, but that's not how I remembered him telling the story. He said he told the guard, he says, I can hit the warden. And he goes, go ahead and hit the water. He says, I'm going to hit him with some water. And he sat there for a second, and he goes, I got him. And they went over there, and they found a water spot on the warden.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't disbelieve it at all.
So the warden, after he hears the show, apparently he believed it. Because they bring in the priest, the reverend. And they're like, see if you can do something about this fella down here. Because we don't know what's going on with that. Now, at first, the reverend was like, no, you're making all that up or whatever. And at this point, Don got really, really mad at being accused of faking. And apparently, according to witnesses, when he got mad, his cell filled up with this really bad smell. No, not like a fart or anything like that, but like a really bad smell. And then like rain starts coming down the walls. So the reverend at this point is like, okay, well maybe there is something to this.
Yeah, it just trickled down the wall.
He can actually do this shit.
Yeah.
So he starts praying with the guy. And this went on for hours and hours. And at the end of this ordeal, Don starts crying and starts talking about all the shit that had happened to him, like, you know, just like letting it all out, you know what I mean?
Well, rain is symbolic for crying. It's tears.
Yeah.
That's what he's doing.
Yeah, I kind of got that impression that it was just like emotion that he was bottling up. Yeah. Because of, like I said, because of the abuse that he'd been going through, and he couldn't like express it. Yeah. And he wasn't he was estranged from his family. Like he didn't talk to his mom or anything like that. So he didn't really have anybody that he could talk to about any of this stuff. So, which is not good. So yeah. So he has an hours long kind of like epiphany, like he has an emotional breakdown or whatever. And after that, he seemed to be a lot better. And the rain that had been in the cell like kind of like dried up and stopped. Now, evidently, Don wasn't able to do the shit after that. Like at least as far as I heard.
Once he got it out of his system.
So what? Yeah, like once he had this purge of like all the emotions, and then he confessed everything, and he said everything, like how he felt about everything, and had this big thing with the priest or whatever. Like apparently, it didn't really do it anymore.
Okay.
Now
he confronted it.
As far as I know, and I don't know if he still thinks this, and this might have been a significant reason why he maybe could control it, if indeed he could, was that he didn't really... I think to an extent, he didn't really believe it was him. He thought that it was the spirit of his grandfather, like, fucking with him, is what he thought.
That was his excuse.
Yeah, like he thought that his grandfather was like continuing to abuse him like after he was dead.
Once he admitted to himself that he was doing it, he took responsibility for it, and the ability vanished.
Right. That's kind of what. Well, that was the same thing that happened in your case.
Basically, yeah. Basically.
Right.
It can come back, but not as good as it did before.
Yeah.
And it takes months. No, I guess it doesn't take months. I gotta be a couple days.
Yeah, if you're thinking about it a lot and you're kind of in a particular state of mind, if you're worrying about it.
I gotta worry about it, yeah.
And then it'll do it.
I stop worrying about it and forget about it, and it'll happen.
And then it'll do it.
Yeah, then you can maybe start getting the ball rolling again, but I never wanted to get the ball rolling.
Right. Because you don't know where it's going to end up, like I said.
Yeah, and it's easier if you're afraid of it. The more fear you have of it, the better it goes. Which kind of reminds me of like shit fucking Yoda said in fucking Empire Strikes Back.
Shit Yoda.
That the dark side flows easily. You know, fucking those abilities come quick.
Well, yeah.
But
because being shitty is easy.
Yeah.
Being good is hard.
Well, negative emotions are more natural.
Yeah.
They
That's what I said. Being shitty.
Yeah, they're stronger and they're more natural, and they're more rooted in fucking primal fears, which that's what it is. I guess you say Nietzsche would call it the will, you know, which the dark side of the force, basically, or the dark side of the force and the force are the same things, just different aspects of the same thing. Nietzsche called it the will to power. Or another, he said the ultimate manifestation of the will is growth. It's just to dominate, to grow, to take over, and impose on other things. That everything imposes on other things. Even inanimate objects imposing on other inanimate objects by occupying space that another object should or could be occupying, but it isn't. So that's what life is, to impose.
Sure. All right, so yeah, as I said, it seems as though his abilities vanished after he purged himself of all the emotions. I first heard about his case on Unsolved Mysteries in early 1993, which is probably where a lot of people heard about it. Sadly, like he had a brief run with fame, like after that, because Unsolved Mysteries, everybody saw that shit. However, several years after his fame had faded somewhat, in 2012, as Tom alluded to before, he was arrested on federal arson charges after setting fire to a restaurant in Pennsylvania. He actually turned himself in to the cops, but he said that the owner of the restaurant had paid him to burn the place down to get the insurance money. So both the owner and him were indicted on charges of mail fraud, criminal conspiracy, and use of fire to commit a federal felony. So he was in there for a while. He's since been released, but I haven't heard anything about him since then. I think he was released, I want to say it was like 4 or 5 years ago, but it might have been more recently than that. But I haven't heard anything about him since then. But like I said, not necessarily like a super happy life this guy has had, much like the last guy we were talking about. But
gotta have internal conflict.
That's kind of the point that we're making, is that you really have to be a particular kind of person, and two, going through some shit. Yeah. Because everybody goes through some shit at some point, but you have to be like a particular kind of person that's going through some shit at a particular time in your life that's the most tumultuous, and then this stuff will happen, because it doesn't happen that often.
Element of faith.
That too, I kind of feel like, because I don't think it would ever happen to me, because I don't really believe that it would.
You got to have faith. You got to have belief in something outside yourself. You got to be able to believe in the unseen.
Right.
Basically.
Which, like I said, so I don't know if it would happen to me, because I'm too rational for that.
No, you got to be irrational.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Instinctual.
You know me. I'm very Spock-like, so.
It's not rationality. It's emotion.
Yeah.
Always.
All right. So, do you want to do these two, like?
Yeah, let's do the two little ones.
Yeah, they're kind of short, and they're kind of similar in that both of these not only had adults as the focus mainly, or didn't have a focus that they knew of, but also concerned the spontaneous appearance of blood. Yeah. In the houses, which is
had it happen.
Rare, but it does happen.
It's got to come from somewhere, though.
Yeah.
It's coming from inside one of these people.
Maybe.
It's just teleporting a few drops out, or some of it out.
Well, we'll see. Because,
we'll see. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this one happened in France in 1986. So we have a truck driver named Jean-Marc. I guess it's Belmay. So he moves into this house with his wife, Lucy. They moved in 1985. Now, they kind of renovated the place, and, they just thought, this is going to be our little dream house or whatever. Now, he was a truck driver, so he was away for long stretches of time. So Lucy was by herself in the house a lot. Now, she didn't mind it at first, but after a while, she started to feel like someone else was in the house watching her, which, is a very common first manifestation before this kind of shit happens. Now, in early 1986, rather. I was sorry, I went a little fucking backwards there. Early 1986, she goes into the kitchen of this house and sees a little bit, like something on the wall that kind of looks like blood, like just a little bit. Now, she was just in there and she's like, look, I just cleaned in here and I did not see this. But, what are you going to do? It's not that weird. It's like, oh, maybe I smudged it. I don't know. You're just kind of like not thinking about it. So she just cleaned it up and then just like, okay, whatever. But then a little while later, she goes into the bedroom and sees that this same blood-looking shit is on the bed and on some of her clothes. Which wasn't like that before. So she's kind of freaked out at this point. So she tries to clean it up. Again, thinking, well, there has to be some kind of rational explanation for this, right? That's what you would think. However, over the next few days when she was at the house by herself, because like I said, her husband was away, this stuff, whether it was blood or whatever it was, starts appearing all over the place. Like drops of it, streaks of it, the walls, on the floors, on the ceiling. And she would clean a place and then turn her back and then turn back, and then there would be like smears of it there. So
I guess it cleaned up okay?
I guess.
Didn't leave stains?
Yeah, I guess not.
Okay.
There was also some other poltergeist activity going on too. There was like banging on the walls, very, very common. Pieces of furniture being moved around, like while her back was turned. Stuff would be in a different place. Dishes were broken, doors open and closing by themselves, things like that. And, the blood would appear, and it started getting, like, worse. Like, there would be more of it, you know what I mean? Like, bigger puddles or bigger smears or whatever. So she didn't know what to do, so she called the cops. Now, the first thing, the cops show up, and they saw the blood and stuff, but they said, well, what must have happened? They had a dog. So they said, well, maybe your dog got hurt and was trailing blood everywhere. You know what I mean? Like, even on the ceiling, because you know how dogs walk on the ceiling sometimes. But they found the dog. They kind of looked the dog over. The dog was fine. He didn't have any cuts or anything like that. And then they thought, well, maybe somebody's breaking into your house and making this mess or whatever. So they decide they're going to spread flour around on the floor and see if somebody's coming in and doing it. Like, to get their footprints or whatever. So they do it overnight. The next day, though, there's no footprints in the flour, but there's still blood spatters all over the house that were not there the day before. So the cops take samples of the blood. They did tests on it. This was 1986. You couldn't really do DNA on stuff, but they could determine that it was human blood. Lucy also said that the door to the cellar, the basement, closed by itself behind her. And also one of the cops said that he felt somebody tapping him on the shoulder, but when he turned around, nobody was there. So finally, the cops didn't really know what to do, so they called like a psychic or whatever. The psychic said, as of course, because they always kind of say this, don't they? They said, oh, there's a body buried in the cellar.
Yeah,
and it's the ghost. So, I mean, apparently they believed the psychic enough to like dig the cellar up, but, not surprisingly, they did not find anything because, like I said, that's what the psychic always says. Oh, there's somebody buried under the house. You know what I mean? There might be, but not in this case. So at this point, Lucy and her husband, Jean-Marc, were, kind of like, had it up to here. So they're like, we're moving out of this fucking place. So they moved out. Now, their family came and moved in after that. And they, at this point, it had started to get a little bit of a reputation. Like, it was kind of a small town, so everybody kind of knew about it. And they called it, like, the Blood House or whatever, or the Bloody House. But apparently the next people that moved in did not have any problems, at least as far as I could determine. So nobody really knows if she was the focus, if this was some kind of weird, because that does seem like poltergeist activity, does it not?
Yeah, it does.
And she was the only one in the house when the shit was going on. So if there was a focus, then it had to be her. Or the dog.
Yeah.
Because they were the only living beings.
We're not being told. There's something she was worried about.
Maybe so. Well, like I said, it really does have to be
blood.
Some kind of like emotional turmoil, right?
Yeah, so like emotional turmoil. Was there something reproductive? Did something reproductive happen?
Who knows?
Did she
know.
terminate a pregnancy? Something happened. We're not.
Like I said, something.
Did she lose a baby? We're not being told everything.
I mean, possibly. It's possibly.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Her age and blood. Something reproductive, maybe.
Or she was like worried about her period or something.
She was worried about something reproductive.
Possibly.
And manifested some kind of poltergeist thing.
Or she watched too much true crime shit.
Whatever.
I don't really know.
No, it had something to do with her.
But
the blood symbolized something to her.
Here's another one, though.
It was in relation to what she was worried about.
That is similar, but maybe less explicable. So this one happened in Atlanta, in Georgia, where my sister lives, in 1987. And this is another case of a blood poltergeist. Now, as far as I know, this house is still there. I'm not sure of the exact address. You could probably find it if you looked up. This is, I don't know if I'd say this is a famous case, but it's fairly well known. So it's kind of a nice little house made of brick in a suburb of Atlanta. Now, this house, this couple had lived there in 1987 for 20-odd years, and nothing weird had happened. Their names were William and Minnie Winston. Like I said, they'd been married a long time, they'd lived there a long time, more than 20 years, and nothing weird had happened. However, in the fall of 1987, Minnie's in the shower and kind of gets out of the shower and sees that the bathroom floor suddenly is covered in red puddles that kind of look like blood. And she kind of saw some of it kind of coming out of the walls, too. Now, Minnie was 77 years old at the time.
I think I remember this case.
Yeah. And so she's kind of freaking out. Like, she didn't think anything about, oh, it's paranormal. She's like, one, these puddles were not here before. Two, she thought that something bad had happened to her husband, William, because he was, almost 80. He was 79 years old. And, he wasn't in super good health. So she's like, well, shit, maybe he, came in and, like, bled everywhere and, like, something's the matter. So she was, like, freaking out. He had to have dialysis. Like, he was on a dialysis machine, and he had to do it, like, every day. So she starts yelling for him, like, hey, like, are you okay? Like, there's blood all over the fucking floor. And he shows up at the bathroom door. And he's fine. Like, he's in his pajamas, and he's like, what are you yelling about? You know what I mean? I'm totally fine. No trace of blood anywhere. So the two of them at this point, they're like, okay, well, obviously something fucking weird is going on. So they start, like, looking around the house. And they're just starting to, like, flip out because they can't figure out where this came from, right? Because she's just been in the shower. Like, nobody's been in there. So not only was there blood all over the bathroom floor, but there was blood all over the house. Like, there was, like, puddles of it, like, all over the, like, in the living room and shit like that, like, down in the basement. Like, even places where you couldn't really get to, like, underneath the appliances and, like, in the crawl space and, like, coming out of the walls and shit like that. Like, suddenly. What they described it as, they said it looked like somebody had just, like, sprayed or thrown blood all over the walls and the floor. They said that's what it looked like. Like, it looked like a fucking murder scene, right? And like I said, it was even in places where you couldn't really get to, like under the fridge and whatnot. So they didn't know what to do. They called the cops. They're like, it looks like somebody's been fucking murdered in here. We can't figure it out. So the cops come, and again, the first thing they thought was that, oh, maybe like an animal got wounded, like a raccoon or something, and like got in here and like sprayed blood everywhere.
Yeah, I remember this.
But but they looked around and they couldn't find anything. And then they asked William, they said, well, because he had to do dialysis, like I said, it's like, well, would that have, would you have gotten blood all over the house? And he's like, look, one, I wouldn't bleed everywhere. He's like, I don't even do the dialysis here. I have to go to like the medical center and do it. Like, I don't do it at home. So I don't know where all his blood came from. Now, so the cops took samples of the blood and took it for analysis. couple days later, they found out that the blood was human blood, but it was type O. Minnie and William were both type A. So it wasn't their blood, clearly, but it was human blood, but they couldn't figure out where it came from. Now, at this point, the story had kind of gone around, because, like, what? Bleeding house, right? So that's kind of a big story. And so there was a bunch of stories in the media. So they had, like, a bunch of people, like, camping out on their lawn and shit like that. Now, the cops at this point actually declared the house a crime scene, in part, like, to keep people from coming in, like, and to, you know, be able to, like, get them off the lawn and whatnot. But also because they were like, there's so much blood in your house that it looks like somebody got murdered, and until we figure out, you know, if somebody got murdered or not, we really need to, like, just close this fucking shit off. So the cops went through everything. You know, they did an investigation just like they would do it, like, in a murder or whatever, but they never could figure out who the blood belonged to, or where it came from, why it was all over their house, why it had suddenly appeared with no preamble whatsoever. So after a while, they determined that no crime had been committed. They couldn't find a body or anything like that. So finally, they just had to close the case.
And then nobody saw the blood appear.
No, it was just there.
It was just there.
Like I said, Minnie was in the shower. She stepped out the shower and there was blood puddle. And then when they went and looked in the house, it was just blood all over the place.
And none was added after. In other words, more of it wasn't appearing.
I don't think so, no.
And no objects moved.
I don't think so, no. It was just blood appearing everywhere. And these two, like, older people.
Well, it's a bunch of blood that appeared everywhere at once.
Yeah,
it
pretty
wasn't
much.
Continuing to appear.
That's how I read it anyway.
Yeah. But to say it's a hoax.
Maybe so.
They must have hoaxed it.
Like, I don't know. Like, why would a 77-year-old and a 79-year-old?
So maybe somebody hoaxed them.
Perhaps. It could be, because that does seem like somebody got some blood from somewhere.
Well, they might have just drained it from themselves. What year was this?
86.
86, yeah. Somebody might have just drained the blood from themselves.
It was a lot of blood, though,
because it's easy to put a fucking IV in, drain some blood, maybe from a couple different people, your friends, and sneak into the old people's house and spread the shit around, and then just sneak out the back door or something like that. That's more likely than anything else.
I wonder why somebody would do that, though. What a weird thing to do.
Because it doesn't follow any of the patterns of poltergeist. You know, repeated, recurrent, spontaneous psychokinesis, constant moving of objects, demonstrational stuff, patterns,
right?
Stacking stuff, taking things, making things appear. Like, where'd that come from? You know, whose pillow is that? You know, that kind of shit. Yeah.
Whose panties are those?
Yeah. Whose pillows are that? You know, it might have been from the neighbor.
Whose
you don't
dildo
know.
is that?
Yeah, just anything. Shit, didn't you wish? Jenny wishes all these free dildos to fucking show up.
I've got lots of dildos. I don't need free ones.
That's fucking funny. Business dildos.
Business dildos.
Yeah. These
tax write-offs.
Tax write-off dildos.
We just got one the other day that's like super realistic. It even has balls and everything, like realistic feeling balls. It's pretty weird.
Make a video with that thing.
Yeah. Although, like I said, I'm not usually a big fan of like realistic looking ones because I think they're kind of weird. But
we're getting off topic, Jim.
I know. Well, I mean, I was pretty much done. I mean,
okay, yeah.
Now I do have the address.
I think it's a hoax.
I do have the address of this house, but I'm not going to say it because I wouldn't. I mean, you can find it probably. If I found it, you can find it.
They either hoaxed it for some reason, or somebody hoaxed them. You can get your hands on blood.
Yeah,
you know,
I kind of if this is a hoax, I kind of suspect that somebody else did it to them for some reason, because I don't really see any reason why this old couple that had lived here for 20 plus years would suddenly decide, hey, let's throw some blood around our house and like call the cops.
Crazy ass 16, 17-year-old teenagers that knew these
like
people.
Broke in and threw blood everywhere.
Well, they probably didn't have to break in. They probably knew these people.
Maybe so.
And fucking, they just said, "This would be funny, man. Run through there and throw this fucking blood." Yeah, that'd be fucking. You know what I mean. You know, when she's in the shower going there and fucking. Because where was the husband?
I don't know where the husband was.
Okay.
I think he was just in the living room.
You could probably see her in the shower, hear the shower running from outside the house. If you're on the side of the house, she's in the shower, and then fucking she leaves her back door open, so you run in there and and then. That's probably more, and then they leave with the fucking IV bag.
Don't do that to people.
It's probably what they did.
Shitty.
and they did it in a way they're not walking through their own tracks. So they started at went into the house and fucking.
So they put some thought into this.
Yeah. Probably that's more likely. Because if it was a poltergeist, it would have been recurrent.
Right.
You know what I mean? And
Keep talking. I gotta pee.
And it would have done it as a demonstration.
Right.
You know, it's not a one-time thing. That's the whole thing about poltergeist. It's got like a mission. There's a reason why the poltergeist phenomena is emerging out of this person, and it's trying to communicate and demonstrate. It's definitely demonstrating what it can do, and it doesn't want to give up any information about what it is and how it's doing it. It's trying to fake you out and make you think it's an outside force, because that's what'll help it continue what it's doing. And there's an overarching reason for it. It's either trying to break a family apart or to bind a family together, or to fucking, like in Donnie Decker's case, he's trying to expel all his sadness from what happened to him with his granddad. And finally, once he confronted it, his sadness, he resolved it. He let it out. So he didn't have that internal pressure and all that internal, conflict built up in there. He had resolved it. So his ability faded, which that's unfortunate in a way. Well, it's fortunate for him. Kind of unfortunate for me, Donnie Decker.
Don?
Because I wanted to meet Don, and I wanted to see him make it rain. And he could make it rain, and I could make it throw things or hide things.
You could have like a little poltergeist party.
Yeah, we have a poltergeist party. And I say, how'd you throw the water? And but he thought that the evil crown man threw the water. So he did it.
I mean, that was my understanding, that he, at least initially, thought that it was an outside force.
Right.
Like he thought that it was a ghost.
Yeah, and he was probably conflicted about that. His subconscious knew, but he suspected that it was him, but he couldn't believe that it was him.
Right.
So instead, he lied, saying that it was him. But he's lying unknowingly. He's actually telling the truth. And then he finally resolved it. Said, "Yeah, I am doing it," and went away.
Well, like you said, you have a theory, kind of, that you can't control it. You have to allow it, and the best way to allow it is to think that it's not you.
That's not you. Yeah.
Like to think that it's an outside entity.
That's with any of that stuff. Like the hardest thing about having an out-of-body experience is that you have to allow it. It's the ultimate surrender. You're literally giving up the ghost. So it's like voluntary death. It feels like death. Well, a lot of people resist death. You're kind of...
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a natural reaction.
Natural thing. As it comes, as you start feeling the separation, you feel a loss of control, and then all of a sudden you feel like you're being pulled out. And then you're like, whoa, 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 whoa. I almost died. And it'll stop. So It's difficult. It's extremely easy if you're just like a kamikaze. You know what I mean? But I haven't really been in that kamikaze mode. And then trying to allow it too much, trying too much imposes it. You have to suspend all will.
Yeah, you can't try to do it. It doesn't work.
No, you have to just total surrender, just fucking stop everything. And it almost feels like you're stopping your mind. You even stop thinking. And imagine that. You're just everything's going blank. And then you feel like you're ceasing to exist. And then you'll be looking down on yourself, and you'll be out. And if you get too excited, you'll get sucked right back in. Pow!
Yeah, I can see how that would be a really difficult thing to do.
It's hard to stay out.
Yeah.
All this shit about silver cord and getting lost, bullshit. I didn't see any silver cord or anything. There's no problem going back in. The problem is staying out. As soon as you think of your body, you go back.
Yeah.
If you just think about it, you'll go back. And I was never able to go very far. because there were other people fucking trying to fucking snap me out of it in one case. Another case is that you get out, but then you lose consciousness. And then you wake up like you were, and you don't remember what happened. You wake up the next morning. Like you remember looking down on yourself.
Right.
But then you were exteriorized. But then you fell asleep while you were exteriorized. Because it's partially falling asleep while maintaining consciousness.
Right.
It's another weird thing that it feels like. It feels like your head's shaking back and forth. And then it gets stronger and stronger and stronger, and you just surrender to it and you're looking down. And if you and you don't know the controls, you just look at a place, you'll go there. It's like you're like a little ball that can see like 360 and feels like you're standing on a fucking...
Like a little spindle or something.
Like a spindle, like a stick. And just looking in the way you fall, you're like, whoa, 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 and then it stabilizes. And then you can choose how you want to see things. You can choose what colors they are. You can choose to look through things or to go in things and look at something from two directions at once. You're non-local. And time is slowed down. You can do a lot in a very small, it's like compressed. Because you're moving at the speed of thought, basically. There is no physical body to impede you, so nothing takes any time. And you kind of have this underlying feeling of just awareness, and you become aware of what you can do. But there's so much stuff that you can do, you can't do it all in the amount of time. And then all of a sudden you go, man, this is fucking amazing, and then wow, and then you're back in.
Right.
It's like that.
The second you become like aware of
you start becoming too aware of it, or you start getting too excited about it. And then you go,
woohoo, I'm out of my body.
You're like, what happens? Yeah, and you go, as soon as you, whoa, I'm out of my body, you think body, and all of a sudden, boom, you're back into it. So it's hard. It's like standing on it's like riding on a pogo stick, and you don't really know how to ride on a pogo stick, or trying to fucking balance yourself on a stick. Anything you do disturbs it, and you want to go somewhere, or you go back into your body. Or you fall asleep, and then you're in dreamland. So I think a lot of times you're out of body when you're dreaming. You're just in a dream world. It's not a real world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you can see the material world from that mind state. Just that it doesn't look quite the same. You can also see what other people are dreaming. You can go into their dreams. They'll see you and they'll remember you if you know them. But mostly it's a person I don't know. I just see them at random dreaming, and I see their dream and I go in it. And it wakes them up when they see me.
I wrote a novel years ago that there was like another dimension where all like your nightmares came from. You know what I mean? And it was like a place you could actually go to. Yeah,
but the thing is that the dream worlds are not real. They're more like a chat room. They've been created by a person. You can contact them there, but they're in an illusion. The other worlds are real. And you can see the material world. Anything you want to see in the material world, you'll go there. But you may not see it very accurately.
Right.
It's kind of vague. Everything just looks like fucking geometric shapes of fucking particles, clouds. It looks like cigarette smoke. You know, cigarette smoke blows through the light.
Yeah.
Kind of like that. And then when you rub your eyes, you see those colors. Everything's shaped like that. And it's whatever color it has to be to differentiate it from another object. So nothing makes any sense. An object that might be like that's a black table, but if I'm looking at it in the astral world, it might be red, a red energy cloud, sitting on a blue floor of blue energy. You know, and just things, colors change just so you can get an image. You know what I mean? It's not the real color.
Right.
It's just something that you're doing. It's something that you're doing so you can form an image of what it is. Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Bryce.
We need some money, Bryce.
I agree with Tom. The mind is more than just the body. This is why some seers can find water and stuff. Most of those people are frauds, though.
Yeah, most of them are frauds.
Yeah, I mean, there probably is some. There's more shit that about what our minds can do that we don't understand. That's for sure.
The military tried to use it. It's not reliable, especially under stress. It's too unpredictable. It's better just to use technology. That's why they use it. And spies.
Yeah, it's a lot more dependable.
Yeah.
Like I said, humans are... I'm not saying that some humans don't have like some cool abilities and shit like that, but they're just too hit or miss.
Yeah.
You can't rely on them.
Yeah, and if you put that person like, look, you must fucking do your ability. We got to save the president. That's so much performance anxiety, man. Fucking,
it's gonna fuck it up.
You're just gonna fuck it up. Right.
It's like you might as well just use like fucking.
Use an assassin or something.
Or an assassin or something.
Yeah.
Like somebody that just
can deal
something
with
that's not gonna fuck up.
Right.
That where emotions aren't gonna get involved.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because it's too much.
Yeah.
Oscar is here. Hey, what's up? Said Jenny looking toned. Did gym today this morning.
She was fucking looking jacked, man. She got up from that fucking bench and she was standing there. And I've never seen her look like that. I said, Jenny, man, you're looking fucking great, man. She's fucking trimming up around the midsection, fucking legs fucking...
I've lost a lot of weight, actually. Yeah.
Legs getting fucking shapely and shit. Arms coming in better.
Tom loves that shit.
Yeah.
He loves that shit.
Give it a couple more months. Actually, in a couple months, you'll see a much bigger difference. But then over a period of years, each year, because it's not the same as being an old person where you're declining every year. Fucking when you're on HRT, you start fucking making progress every year. Better progress than what a teenager would make.
I'm not that old. I'm not worried about it. I mean, I'm old, but I'm not that
It'll
old.
rebuild you.
Yeah, like the bionic fucking woman.
Yeah. I was seeing pictures of fucking dudes talking about it today and fucking showed a dude he was 62. The motherfucker looks so much better than me. It's not even funny. Dude's just ripped. Fucking 62.
We get people on StreamYard all the time not believing how old
Yeah, they don't believe how old we are, yeah.
So, that's good. I like it.
Just learn the shit, people. I'm not a doctor. I don't give medical advice. But just learn the shit.
Don't get sued.
I don't want to get sued. All the information's out there. They don't really want you to know about it, though. It's not patented medicine. They want to sell patented medicine.
Well, it's not that hard to find. I mean, to be honest. You found it.
Yeah.
So, it's
Study
out there.
about hormone replacement therapies.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Might fuck your voice up if you're a girl, but that's okay.
What's that?
Said might fuck your voice up if you're a girl, but that's okay.
If you're using it fucking post-menopause, it's a good trade-off.
Yeah, I don't mind.
It doesn't really, because, and besides, when you see these women, their voices and their bodies match. It looks normal, because she just doesn't look like a fucking dainty flower. Motherfucker looks like a leopard, and that's how they sound. I'm not talking about big pro bodybuilders. I'm talking about wellness, fitness models and shit.
Well, and I was saying to you earlier, like, when we were watching that woman, and she was showing some of the shitty comments she got about her voice and stuff like that. I'm like, one, I don't know. People suck, and I'm just kind of like, why do you care so much about what... You don't even know that person?
Yeah.
It's like, why do you care? Even if it was a man, why do you care? Like, I don't understand why...
She doesn't sound like a man.
She doesn't, but
No.
I'm like, even if she did, why would you give a shit?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why would you give a shit so much that you're like watching her video and then taking the time to comment?
Hit.
Yeah, exactly.
They want to hit. They want to hit. They can't hit.
And it's very transparent that that's the only
Right.
reason. Because it's like if you weren't into it, you wouldn't be watching it or commenting on it in the
They
first
want to hit,
place.
and they can't hit because her boyfriend's like an 11.
Yeah.
Or he's a fucking...
So it's like it's just little incels crying.
Right.
That's what it is.
I'll show them who we're talking
Just like a lot of the shitty comments on the internet. It's
Yeah.
incels crying. Mike Bowser says, if I get a blood poltergeist, it better have blood flowing up the walls.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that would at least be more... At least you would know it was supernatural. This one, apparently, like I said, they just kind of like came out and be like, man, there was blood everywhere, and we don't know where it came from. Which, like I said, I don't necessarily think that the old people would be pulling a prank, but maybe somebody did some shit to them. Bryce says incels crying.
Yeah.
I mean, the world would be a better place if incels would just stop crying about shit.
This is who we're talking about. See, maybe they'll let her turn around. That's her.
Yeah, like, I don't get it. Well, like I said, even if I accidentally stumbled upon a video with some asshole that I was just like, oh man, this person's an asshole, I wouldn't even bother commenting. Why would I bother commenting on it? I got better things to do.
Look at her six-pack.
I actually really like her neck tattoo.
Yeah. She lives here in Florida.
And it's fairly recent, I think, because I saw some older shit of her and she didn't have that.
Yeah.
But I actually really like that. Because it kind of looks like a high collar, like a turtleneck.
Yeah.
I'm kind of into that. It's cool.
She wears black contacts and stuff. She's kind of a goth chick. Another picture of her.
That's her. I think that's her little gay friend or something. She comes up. Yeah, she comes up messing with. They're always fucking goofing around. She's gonna come up and fucking manhandle his ass. Yeah.
Oh my.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I'm not really that bothered about the voice, but
hers is fucking twice.
it is a lot deeper.
Twice,
than
yeah.
mine. But it still sounds like a woman's
Yeah,
voice.
yeah,
to me.
yeah,
It
yeah,
doesn't
yeah.
really sound like a man's voice.
Yeah.
Even if it did, who gives a fuck? Like I said, I don't really understand.
doesn't sound like
I don't
hers.
understand why people get so hung up about
No,
that
you
kind of shit.
you put her voice next to mine. That's
baffling to me. It's baffling.
Yeah.
I'm like, you don't even know that person. Like,
Yeah.
Why do you care so much?
You know.
Well, I don't get it.
But no, those dudes are trying to hit, so they're just trying to find anything
so
fucking
they're
wrong.
Just, they're just pissing and moaning and
Yeah.
peeing their diapers. And
Yeah.
Whatever. and I don't have patience for it. I don't know. Like I said, once you get as old as us, you don't really give a fuck what people think anymore. Especially people like that would cry about somebody like that, like saying, "Oh, she looks like a man."
Yeah, she does not look like a fucking man.
No, she doesn't. But like I said, even if she did, who's like, why would you? Why do you care? Don't know. I don't know.
Just go ahead and shut it down, Jen. We've been on for a fucking long time. It's almost midnight.
Yeah, we've been on for 3 hours and 45 minutes.
Yeah.
This is a fun show, though. So whenever it's Poltergeist, like, I know that Tom's gonna have a bunch of
I got a lot to say about it.
stuff to say about it. So that always makes it a good show.
If you like this show, the other one I would recommend would be probably Out of Body Experiences, and that was the name of the show.
I mean, it's pretty old,
From
but
Mars.
yeah,
It's old. I tell in detail fucking what my out of body experiences were like. One of them was a near death experience when I was in a coma, fucking motorcycle wreck. Had an out of body experience like a week before it happened, and then had a near death experience, kind of like a certain part of your fucking soul knows that your time may be short, but I survived it. It's like the out of body experience was kind of, and it was spontaneous. It just did it on its own in the barracks when I was in the army. And the guy living with me in my dorm, fucking, he saw it happen. He won't talk about it. He saw it, and then a week later, I had that fucking motorcycle accident and fucking had a whole near-death experience.
Yeah, busted his head open.
Yeah, fucking was at the gates of the Pleroma, getting ready to recycle. There was a whole fucking welcoming community there that all knew me, going, "No, you can't come."
Tom, what's up?
Yeah, they were saying, "What's up?" But you can't come in. And I was like, "I can't come in."
Your
What are you talking about? And I'm done. No, you're not done. So I'm trying to go home. And it's like that.
You
I
gotta
don't
go
know who
back
the other
to that
people were.
shitty
They
ass
might have
place.
been other manifestations of me. I don't know. Other roles that I had played, other games or something. I don't know if they were me or if they were other people that I knew. I think it might have been me.
So it was like your version of Danny. Like
Yeah, but there were a lot of them. But there were lots of them.
Like
There were
at different ages and
There were
stuff?
like 7 or 8 of them.
Okay. Yeah, it might have been you from the future.
In the past and other dimensions.
Yeah.
One of them wasn't human. One of them was more like Cro-Magnon or Neanderthal. It was that girl.
Oh, okay.
She was pretty, but she was not human.
Right.
Kind of human.
Proto-human.
Yeah.
Let's call it that.
Yeah, she's all tribal, looked like a tribal wizard. Wore like some out of Lord of the Rings.
Don't lie. You'd still
Hood.
Hit. You'd still hit.
She was cute. She was cute, but she wasn't human. She kind of had a long facial prognathous ears and shit, kind of like chimpanzee type ears. A lot of long hair, but she didn't have hair on her face. I didn't see the body, and they were made out of like welding arc material, so I didn't really see what the skin texture was. But I knew the voice and knew the face, but I wasn't allowed to remember who it was. That was one of the ones that I remember. And then there was just other ones that were like dudes of different ages and stuff. And I checked in with them all. And there was a big tall one that was like like your senior advisor. I don't know if that was some kind of super ego or if it was God or
Maybe that was your guardian angel.
or an angel. I don't know, but it was kind of like my case manager. Yeah.
Like in Beetlejuice.
Yeah, exactly.
Your caseworker
It was vaguely
in the
male.
afterlife.
It was vaguely male, but it was kind of just an elongated humanoid form.
Right.
Kind of like, didn't have a face or anything, just an elongated humanoid silhouette. And we were speaking telepathically, I could hear its thoughts, and there was like a emotion and voice went with it. It was all layered in at one. And I knew him. He knew me and everything. We were like old buddies. He was like, you can't go back because of this and that. And he showed me what it was that I had agreed to do. And I was like, oh, yeah, I forgot about that. And I was like, all right, I'll go back. And he says, but, and they were like, you'll be back soon, though, and blah, blah, blah. And they showed me some other stuff. And then he said, you're not going to remember any of this, though. Or you're going to remember little of this, is what it was. And then he said, tell people. Yeah, you tell people when you guys. Okay, I'll tell everybody.
Spread the word.
I didn't tell everybody, though. No, it wasn't possible back then.
Right.
This is the closest
now you can tell the whole world.
You tell people this.
Or at least a tiny portion of the world.
I was like, yeah, okay. But there's certain things you're not going to be able to remember. Because I was shown things about the future. My future. I wasn't allowed to remember those.
Right.
So, but when I saw him, I remembered agreeing to that. Like, oh, yeah, that's the movie I paid for.
Yeah.
Like that kind of shit. Like, but can't spoil the ending type of deal.
Yeah, I gotcha. Well, at least they did that. No
Yeah.
spoilers.
Yeah, so then I said, all right, and I turned around and looked and saw saw the material world. It looked like the Wheel of Fortune from the game Wheel of Fortune, a disc with a bunch of colors, and as I looked at it, it was more and more intertwined, almost kind of like a damn like that Oriental rug. It was just a bunch of fucking patterns. And as I looked at it, the more I understood that was like lives and things that happened inside time space. And I saw where I was when I picked up, like the groove in a record of where the song was.
Yeah.
And I zoomed into there, and I was in the hospital. I came back.
Like I said, that reminds me of that Clive Barker book, Weave World.
Yeah. It's kind of like a record.
Yeah.
It did have a pattern you could see, but it was just showing me a representation of that so I could understand what was happening.
Right.
It's not the way it really looked. That was just symbols to describe to me how to get back. You know what I mean? It's not a disc.
Yeah.
And it was outside time and space. That disc was all time and space.
Yeah.
And everything that happens in it as a singularity. And, not just the planet, but the fucking universe. So it's too vast.
Yeah, like you said, it was trying to show you in a way that you
in a more simplified form.
Yeah,
right.
that you could
so I could navigate my way through it.
Sure.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, Agnes, this is a dress, actually. So it's purple with kind of like a thing on it. Bryce says, insulting a girl is the lamest way to try and hit that. At least be original. It is very lame.
Yeah. The thing is fucking, you look at that shit, you look at those dudes that are fucking, they're on Instagram. A lot of them that say that. These dudes will say some sideways shit on Instagram, and I'll go look.
It's like, oh, let's see what this fucking
see, this dude's like
beautiful motherfucker looks like.
Some like 100-pound dude up in Pakistan, all right, with arms like fucking little bitty broomsticks. Of course, he's gonna be mad.
Well, he's just mad because
she get his ass kicked by that.
Yep.
She looked like a man. And one time I said, yeah, she looks like a man when she's standing next to you. She's standing like to me. She looks like a woman. But you look like a woman when you stand next to me. Even more of a woman, just an ugly woman. And that shut that shit down. There was a bunch of fucking laughter, people laughing. Yeah.
Well, like I said, it's pretty transparent that like when somebody says that kind of crap, everyone's like, yeah, we know what your deal is. I know they think they're being all clever and shit like that, but it's like, it's all, you're just like, hey, I'm insecure.
Yeah.
Now the world knows. Good job. Good job. Agnes said, you look really nice, Jenny. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. All right. Are you ready to shut the show down now for real?
It's getting late.
Well, you're the one who kept talking.
I don't know. I'm putting on a show.
Okay. But you just said before.
Tell him what happened. Tell him what I thought.
Tell him what happened.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the show. I mean, I had a good time. It went on for almost 4 hours.
Damn.
But yeah.
Yeah.
Damn.
That's a long show.
Yeah. All right. So we will be back Friday night for the Sidetracks show. So that's always fun. We just talk about whatever bullshit. I mean, about whatever more bullshit than usual. So hopefully you guys can come and join us for that. It's always a good time. So thank you everybody for dropping by. Thank you for super chats. And we will see you guys again on Friday night. Good night.